I am. All right. Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of April 7th, 2022. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. All members are present with the exception, oh, nope, here comes Ms. Cohen and Ms. Naborski. So everyone is here this evening, and the first thing we're going to do is start the public hearing on the FY23 budget. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to have some input on the budget this year?
You have to open up the hearing first.
Oh, I have to open the hearing formally. Do I have to get a vote for it? I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay, motion to open the public hearing on the FY23 budget.
Moved by Stacy.
Moved by Stacy, seconded by, moved by Stacy, seconded by John. All in favor? Thank you. All right, and now the hearing is open. I apologize. Robert, do you have anything you want to share about the budget?
Oh, not my
That was you, yeah. We'll start with you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
I'm ready to jump right in.
Fantastic.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And certainly thank you for your service on behalf of all the families and students in the town. I personally appreciate it, and I know a lot of folks in town do. My name is Robert Principe. I'm here representing the Diverse Holliston Education Committee, and we are advocating for a redistribution of existing funds for the critical work of social emotional learning and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Holliston Public Schools. So if I could just get a little bit of a context for our advocating for that. So this is 2022 marks my 30th year as a diversity and inclusion specialist. I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying it because I just finished 4 trainings in a major private college in New England. And this story could be in any sector, in any of the hundreds of trainings I've done around DEI, around the country essentially. The topic for the staff, not for students, but for adults essentially, was equity and belonging in the workplace, your role and how to make it happen, and constantly talking about people's sphere of influence. The reason I'm referencing that is because when I say that, too often I get blank stares. I have influence? I can make the change we need to make? Any sector, I can say the same story. We need vision for change in how we distribute funds for education in our schools. Change in educational outcomes to drive our decision making. More context, the challenge and urgency of now tells us that the divisiveness in this country is pervasive and destructive. Right here in Holliston, multiple incidents of racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic language in Holliston public schools, which only mirrors the country. Hate crime reported in U.S. surged to the highest level in 12 years, the FBI reported last year. Highest level in 12 years. Massachusetts, this is just this last month, has the 4th highest level of hate propaganda activities in the nation. Massachusetts. The New York Times, the Surgeon General warned in December of youth mental health crisis. Young people are facing devastating mental health effects as a result of the challenges experienced by their generation. Yes, because of COVID, but the article states mental health issues among our youth were already on the rise in the U.S. prior to COVID. So these are unacceptable outcomes for us. Let's be honest, if we were talking about students and their capacity to do quantitative work in math or science or write a paragraph, we wouldn't be having this conversation. These are other skills that are critical for them as citizens that I have experience to tell you adults are poor at. We need better citizenry. So that's how critical this work is. The work of social emotional learning and diversity, equity, inclusion is critical. We need a line item in the school budget for SEL DEI work. Creating the needed resources for this critical work does not have to be about a larger budget. Diverse Holliston strongly advocates for a redistribution of already existing funds to create this line item. We need to take every opportunity we can to make a statement about prioritizing this critical work of teaching and learning for students as citizens in our town. When I was here in October and Jariel Vernay presented his wonderful vision for the work, we were all, wow, this is great. Someone leaned over to me and said, literally, this is a true story, he's going to do all this without a budget? It was that sinking feeling of saying, wait, you're right, that doesn't make any sense. This is great stuff, but what we need to prioritize it in the budget. So, I don't know, redistributing 25% of the professional development budget, let school leadership, and certainly the individual, the director we hired for the expertise to do this SEL-DEI work, to make decisions about how to best distribute those funds. But make it a line item. We need to take this opportunity to change our practice and prioritize this kind of learning, teaching and learning, work and culture change in our school budget. So that's basically it. That's what Diverse Holliston is saying. I'm here to be a spokesperson for that. I'm speaking personally about it as well, as a citizen, literally. So thank you for listening. The challenges and urgency of now requires us to act based on our needs to change, not do the same. And we need to work to see our schools become more effective spaces for developing, cultivating the citizens we need who develop capacity to grapple with the challenges of building greater access, greater inclusion, greater health and well-being for all of Holliston's children, all of Holliston's families, community members, and beyond. So thank you for considering this and the larger context for this work. And it's a distinctive thing to prioritize it. We know this. You speak when you budget. So thank you for considering our recommendation.
So I can speak to some of what you're asking about.
Sure. Should
So
I stay or?
I think there's a little bit of confusion, and I think Mr. Boudet could also address.
Yeah.
We have certain line items that we have to put money in.
Yep.
There is no bucket for SEL equity work, right? So the money that can be accessed for this work, which we've done with Khalees Warnham this year and other speakers, is under PD, which can be accessed by both Joni and Jariel, Kelly. It's all of us that need to plan PD. We can access it there. And then under curriculum materials, so we have one bucket for curriculum materials, which includes if there needs to be resources purchased by Mr. Vernay related to this work as well. So there is no separate line item because, as far as I know, it doesn't exist under the DESE codes and through our municipal system. It doesn't mean there's not an ability to access those funds. And then additionally, Jariel's done an excellent job of getting multiple grants, which Joni also does. A lot of our PD money comes from those grants and also comes from the work that Jariel's doing with the marked bullying. I don't have all the list, but we have multiple grants that he's doing. So that's typical. It's not that we're not allowing access to this money. It's just it falls under different buckets that are accessed by other administrators as well.
Can I ask a question? So if I hear you correctly, there's a quote-unquote buckets, right, for
Another line item of money.
Yeah. so that there is professional development money, and that's one place where money is drawn to fund different things, including the SEL-DEI work, potentially.
Yes.
Right. So I love playing quote unquote I don't understand. So let me just ask. As what if kind of thing. So you're saying that because of DESE, we can't create a line item for SEL-DEI?
We in general don't create line items for specific like projects by themselves. So for example, when we brought in the Fontes and Pinnell and we do training on that, there isn't a Fontes and Pinnell line item for the training on that. That comes out of initiatives that we have for professional development.
Yeah.
For if we're bringing a new math textbook series, it comes out of a textbook line item, not a math textbook.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? We don't get that granular because we do need to stay light and you know, and especially when you talk about professional development, I mean, we do have limited opportunities for doing district-wide professional development as well. So again, it's all going to be part of an integrated plan district-wide. It is not just, one person's choice or one single initiative.
And just to even, for example,
Yeah.
It's my budget theoretically, the town's budget, but they call it superintendent.
Yeah.
I have no line items that I can access for specific things.
Yeah.
I go to Mr. Boudet and say, can we do X, right? Because that's the way
Yeah.
we have this checks and balances. So there is availability. In fact, we're planning PD for next year right now. Mr. Renee already has multiple hours that he's putting in. Joni's working on certain topics. Student support director is working on topics, and we will then figure out what needs we are we bringing in speakers, and then we look at what we can fund throughout that. But it's all one place that we go for all these sources.
So one more question, is that okay?
Sure.
Is there a way to prioritize? I don't know how you do that. I hear the structure as it exists, okay? Is there a way for us to show it as a priority versus, one more thought, and I'm just thinking out loud, that every year someone has to go and find money for this work? That's the part that, and I'm talking now from experience, when it's always, well, maybe we'll find the money, and that's always a maybe because you never know what's going to happen in a given year. Is there a way to designate so that there's always funds? So I guess I'm talking outside the box here, but that's, from my experience, you're reinventing policies and practices for equity. That's what you got to do. You got to reinvent.
Yeah, but honestly, I hope
Yeah, go
by
ahead.
now you've known that this is a passion of mine, and that's why.
Oh, I know, absolutely.
And that's why honestly, to be able to get this position in this budget in this year, given our other challenges, was a huge boon for the district, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
a line
that
item
was
right
a
there,
full
really.
administrator year-round salary, so I'm ecstatic, and that is a long-term commitment to that. The money that we have for all these things, as a central office team, we meet weekly,
Yeah.
and we meet as a team to talk about what we are prioritizing as a team,
Yeah.
which includes a ton of this work around equity.
Sure.
So I think the results are happening. You just don't see it tangibly because at the end of the year, we'll have him present what we've accomplished this year,
Yeah.
what PD and topics are going to be addressed for next year. So yes, there's not a specific line item, but the work is happening and it's sustainable, and you'll hear about it in our 5-year strategic plan on May 5th.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Is it worth thinking about for the future? I learned this from you. It's not about the person, it's about the position. You and you, like this current, administration
Right.
has DEI as a priority. If that ever were to change, would we want to do something now to sort of write it in so that if
Well, I
No,
just
no,
thought
you see, you
there
don't
were
want
an
to do that
administrative
because,
change?
you don't want to do that because if that's not, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but if it's not where the next direction of the district is going to go, you want to be able to stay light on your feet. I mean, the resources become available when the plans call for that, when the available times and the programs, and whether it be professional development or again, curriculum supplies or whatever it is. Again, we make the plan first and then worry about funding second. We figure out the funding next. It's not because we have available funds we're going to spend it. It's how much does it cost to do X, Y, and Z, and if we have the resources, we do X, Y, and Z. It's really that simple.
Right, and for right now, I'll be starting to look for vendors for an equity audit. I'm not sure where those funds are coming for, but it is a huge priority because that equity audit for next year is going to drive all of this type of work. So that is in our strategic plan right now.
I was going to, it's certainly not just about professional development. Assessment,
And you're
is
seeing
so
a weave
critical.
throughout everything because we have 4 pillars within our strategic plan. And Jerry Ells is entitled, help me out here,
Safe and supportive schools.
Safe and Supportive Schools. And then you also see equity woven into teaching and learning too. So it's woven throughout, so
Yeah.
there is a huge commitment.
I
for
think
Holliston.
if you come May 5th, you'll see we have 4 arches, and 1 full arch out of that umbrella is dedicated to this work, as well as a part of the second arch. So it's really embedded throughout.
And Jerry L. is also working on other grants that he can present when he comes back in June.
Yeah.
And he'll share with what grants he was able to, and grants is something we look for all facets of, all over the place in the district to help to supplement our budget as well, so.
I hear you. And
That's pretty
and I
consistent.
certainly appreciate, and representing the folks at First Holliston that try to, move the needle on this stuff, you're thinking critically about how to best position this. My final thought is maybe there's the idea of better branding. Meaning, you know, so we know we got a lot of publicity around the hate speech stuff and some very good responses. Okay? We didn't just sit and go, oh, that's too bad. We responded. But we want to be able for people to say, we're doing this proactively, and here's what that looks like. So, you know, again, I'm just considering, and I'm thinking on my feet here, you know, to try to continue to reinvent. I say this all the time. We have to revisit, to rethink, to reinvent, to change outcomes. And that's a constant, especially with some of that data I just shared. That's the real deal. We got problems. Our schools need to play a different role in what kind of citizens come out of our schools. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and just related to that, you'll see that we have fully funded MetroWest
The MetroWest
survey,
Which
which
is
is huge.
good
So
stuff.
that is in our budget.
And that took
It
years to
wasn't
get
before.
information.
That was actually grant funded, and we've made that now part of our of the budget. So there is a huge commitment to this
Yeah.
work.
No, I'm not doubting the commitment.
And the funding.
And
And
for
funding.
example, MetroWest though doesn't have its own separate line item.
Right.
For
I
example,
got you,
it's part
I
of
got you.
testing. And so it's, do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? These things are embedded in there, and again, it's part of a plan. And whether the plan changes, it needs more emphasis or less emphasis, we adapt and adjust constantly.
Yeah. So I'm going to go because I know you're sick of hearing me. But again, the one thing that sticks out for me is that branding piece, because people know that resources, not just financial resources, but leadership resources, are going here and going there and focusing on this. It's like, okay, the school is saying this is a priority, right? I mean, Jenna Sampa spoke before the school committee in 2018 and said she was embarrassed by her education in Holliston. She never had a black teacher. She never had studied what racism was about. She stood before the school committee. I have the tape as a graduating senior. When my stepdaughter graduated, I stood and looked at this beautiful ceremony that was lily white. It doesn't have to be that way. So it takes change, and I'm with you. We're with you. We're not saying fix it. We're saying let's fix it. Let us fix it together as a community. Thank you for listening to me, Ren and Ray. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
All right. Seeing no one else for our budget hearing, I will
Do we need a
close.
motion to close it?
Do I need a motion?
I
Yeah, I
move to
do.
close the public hearing on FY
Are
2023.
you here to do a budget talk?
No. Okay. Stacy did first, did anybody second?
Second.
Thank you, Amanda. All in favor? Thank you. All right, and then I'm going to move on to our consent agenda. All items are considered to be routine. It will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the items will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. In terms of warrants, the details will be provided in the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved by Amanda, seconded by Stacy.
Moved by Amanda, seconded by Stacy. All in favor? Thank you. All right, communications. Our student representatives are not available this evening, so I'll move on to school committee individual comments. Anybody have anything this evening? Dawn?
Theater 370 is currently in rehearsals for the spring play, which is called She Kills Monsters. They also just returned from the Mass Educational Theater Guild festival competition and advanced to regionals.
Awesome.
The Act 2 chorus recently competed in the Massachusetts Instrumental Choral and Conductors Association choral competition and was pleased to be recognized with the Bronze Award. And finally, the band and choruses performed last week here at the high school and did an outstanding job. And I believe you were there, Ms. Menard.
They did
so-
incredible.
Yes. Spring sports, both at the middle school and the high school, are well underway with track meets and lacrosse games and all sorts of games moving forward. So.
Okay, so you stole my thunder. The only thing, congratulations to all the students. We're very proud of you and your accomplishments. The only other thing I was going to add is the middle school has their production of Mary Poppins. Unfortunately, they are sold out, so I am not promoting it for you to get tickets. But for those of you who got your tickets, I'm so excited. That's a great play, and good luck to all those students. Break a leg.
The preview was fantastic last week, so
Yeah.
I expect
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Mary Poppins. Minnie, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out. We had our first office hours and my first office hours after I got elected. Sorry. And I have to say that it was a really enriching experience. I wanted to give a shout out to all the parents who came, and thank you to everyone who came to meet us. I also wanted to touch base and tell the community about the things that I heard, and just to give a snapshot of the things that we discussed. There was a discussion on environment. People were talking about bringing in sustainability into the schools, and I thought that was an extremely important topic that we could probably talk about later sometime. And then there were questions on nature's classroom and the things that the kids have missed. But I have to say that the chunk of the conversation revolved around the school start times. There were certain concerns that were brought forward. Some of them, I'll just go very briefly over them. Some of them were like kids were being left alone at home as young as 8 because the parents were not able to rush back home on time. There were some parents who were considering either moving out or having the school join another school. There were concerns about family being affected as a whole because no matter what the age group, the entire household ends up waking up. One parent informed that her class child had lots of tardy kids, so the teacher is not able to start the class on time, and they just do some worksheets. And then one interesting point that came up was that there's 109 days of dark hour bus pickups for Miller kids if and when the Sunshine Act passes. There was a conversation about the equity for all kids, and 35% of all surveyed were negatively affected, which they thought was not equitable. So besides this, parents also have reached out separately, and they have asked if this could be added to the agenda, simply to understand where we are and what may have changed since this was debated last, especially as there has been a significant change with the Sunshine Act coming into play. So I would actually like to see if we could actually add it to the agenda in our next meeting, and just to get the conversation rolling and see if there could be something that we could do about the whole situation. So that's me.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead, Catherine.
Just a reminder that next week is Spirit Week at Miller.
All right.
One of their days is Tacky Tourist Day. I'm excited to see how that turns out.
And Amanda, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say that Dawn and I also had an office hour. We had a couple, but we didn't get a big turnout at Coffee Haven, but we had a good turnout on Zoom, and it was great to connect with folks in the community. I love hearing people's ideas, and it seemed like, to echo what Minnie said, everyone just had a lot of positive willingness to support us and help and share ideas. I think school start times at the next meeting will be great, just to see where we're at, and sort of inform the community about how we are discussing the process and looking at the data and where we're at with that.
All right. And then I just have one thing that I wanted to bring to the community's attention, which is there is a program for understanding teen depression. It's a virtual workshop that is being run by the Youth and Family Services and together with Jariel Varney about your tween and teen, and it is Thursday, April 14th via Zoom through the hollistonlibrary.org. So you can sign up there, but it's on April 14th. So hopefully people will check that out. I think it's a very important program, and I think a lot of parents could benefit from that. So anybody else? Okay, so we'll move on. Dr. Kuska? I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I have two updates related to my student advisory work, and actually this might interest Mr. Principe as well. So I've been doing superintendent student advisories at all levels. Last week I was able to do one at the high school. We had a small group of high school students due to some other conflicts that were happening. But we talked about some of the work that we're going to be continuing here at the high school. We're having a Teen Truth Leadership Summit And we're having a speaker come in on April 28th, so I'll be sharing more about that. You'll hear more from the high school as well. But the purpose of this Teen Truth Assembly is to empower student voice, improve mental health, and build school culture. It's really about making this is the students' building, and this is their school, and empowering them to make the culture change. And then following that, they'll have, I think it's at least 50 students are going to be doing a separate leadership summit portion, and the rest of the students will engage in the conversations in the classroom. So I met with the students. We talked about how to be proactive about this work, and they asked if they could attend the staff meeting, which at the high school, which I attended on Monday. And 2 of the students that I met with spoke up about this work and gave suggestions to the staff of how they could help have these conversations with students. So I'm thrilled to see the student advocacy happening at the high school, especially related to this topic that is an ongoing need. And then today, I attended my pre-K to 2 superintendent student advisory with 15 pre-K to 2-year-olds, grade 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
And what a day I had. Talk about children say the darndest things. They were fabulous. I think people thought that I would be panic-stricken with 15 children running around. They were not. They were so well-behaved. We had a very diverse group. We had students of all shapes and forms, and they were, even our 3-year-olds were answering my questions and giving me feedback about how I could make the district a better place. So I can't tell you, I think I got more out of it than them, but I just want you to know that this work is so important, pre-K to 12, because my hope is that we start these conversations in preschool about a safe and supportive environment as they move on to Miller and then to the middle school and the high school. By the time they get to high school, let's hope we're in a much better place, the community-wide. So.
Can you give us a highlight? Like, what was one of the things that they said? I need to know. I need to know. Give us a snippet.
So when I said, I asked about what I could do to district-wide, because I said, do you know what I do? Do you know who I am? And they said, you're like the principal for all the schools. I said, you're right. I help oversee all the schools. And one little one, when I asked for a little more advice, said, well, you should meet with kids at all the schools and hear what they have to say. And I said, I actually do. I've been meeting at the high school and all these other. And this child said, oh, my mom works at the high school. And I said, oh, who's your mom? And she said, Mom. and I said, oh, I was wondering if she has another name. She said, well, I call her Mom. And she did share the first name, but I still quite haven't figured out, so I won't mention the name right now.
Oh my God, that's adorable.
But, out of the mouths of babes. So this is, like I said, I'm very excited to continue this work, even though that was my first at the preschool grade 2 level this year. I will be doing one more, hopefully by the end of the year, and this is going to be embedded as we go on into next year. And I did say to them, I hope you're going to go home and tell your parents what we talked about today. So stories could be happening at the dinner table.
That's great.
And that's it for me.
All
Sorry.
right. Mr. Boudet.
Actually, I have a few things tonight. First, I'm glad they didn't say they wanted pizza every day, which usually is fun when I'm down there.
I was thinking
but,
like donuts or something
when I'm down there, they find out I'm in charge of food and all hell breaks loose. I just want to inform you, in case any of you have heard, the Boston Public Schools received a milk delivery that contained a solution of water and some sort of sanitizer in the cartons. We did not receive anything like that. We received assurances from Garlic that that was not our delivery. So, in case any of you were worried, or so you don't have to call me tonight at like 3 in the morning or something. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you find? How did they find out? Do we have any information on that?
It was just reported through. I found out from our food services director, Susan Pileski. So I assume she found out either through her chain or watched it on the news. I mean, it's going to be news. So
The concern being that it shouldn't be like children finding out, but yeah.
Was that our company?
we do get our milk from Garlic, yes. So I asked Susan point blank. I said, do you know if it was sabotage or an error? And they haven't heard that yet. So.
And what kind of assurances are they giving us that it's not going to happen here?
That the milk supply, the run of milk, that's what I'm trying to say, the run of milk that goes through, and gets populated there was checked once they found that out. So the misdistribution of milk into those cartons, or what wasn't milk into those cartons, was remedied for us. So
Just, I don't know if this is really a question, but So they're saying like there's sanitizer in it, like as if it was hand sanitizer put in it? Or was it that they were sanitizing the bottles and something got messed up in production and just put sanitizing in with the milk? Does that make sense?
It does
Like
make sense.
I'm thinking to myself it was hand sanitizer, but that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense. I would assume that it was because it was water with the sanitizer. I would
Yeah.
assume it was a cleaning solution.
Right.
Going through the line that, again, they started it too soon before rinsing it down. That would be my guess.
Yeah, mine
But
too.
that's why it's not ours, because
Right.
again, they caught it at some point and then ours came subsequent to that, so. Okay?
Yes.
Since it wasn't mentioned, we were at the select board, a number of us went to the select board on Monday night
yes.
to talk about capital. Dan did a nice job presenting again, and there were a number of questions, which was good, and we made it through that unscathed, apparently. And Susan gave an introduction as well of the, which you're going to hear tonight, gave them a little preview of the SOI process, just to kind of fast track that piece of it, because we're coming up to a deadline, so. And then finally, just because a lot of questions going on, and this happens nearly every year, and I just want to highlight or address three things that we're in talking about the grounds. And again, this happens every year. Everybody sees a lot of trash usually early in the year because snow's gone. And, you can't do much for trash, when the snow is here. And in general, the trash also gets plowed from the parking lot to the fields. And so that's why it ends up there. We've had our cleaning crew, we pay them extra when they do this, going out and picking trash. We're trying to create a more regular routine with them. It's unfortunate that, again, a lot of this trash comes from our own students in our own parking lot. And I can tell you it's from the athletes as well. There was one day I was down at the high school for something else outside, and I saw our cleaner going outside, and I saw this one particular portion of the old Middle Earth field. I can't remember what we call it now, but it was Middle Earth under construction times, like when you guys were all in like elementary school. And it wasn't a thing on it. And I happened to be down there the next morning. I said, let me just go take a look. And it was covered with water bottles. So it's our own students doing it to us. And it's not to us, but it's the ones who are doing it, which is creating the problem. So again, it's being remedied as it is every year. That was one piece. I know Amanda asked about this with the ground firmed up enough. Mostly. They did have a little bit of problems. The DPW.
Super muddy, but there's been dirt.
But we had the dirt there, and they brought in some extra. But this was, again, always the plan. It's just that, again, we had a wet fall, snowy winter, had to let the ground firm up for us to be able to do it. They took care of that. The extra turf, I negotiated a reduced price from our vendor who put the turf in. So we finally took it and put it got a container to do that. I was kind of waiting for them to kind of finish their project. They never finished it. I told them I'm doing it, and that was the end of that. And then the question about the baseball field. Again, baseball, unfortunately, being a spring sport on a field that is high water tabled, to say the least. The story I always mention about the high water table is, I don't know how many, it's probably 10 or 12 years ago now, we actually had water coming out of the volleyball sleeves in the field house. That's how high the water table gets at times. So, again, that field takes a long time for it to dry up, so you can't do a lot of work on it. There was some work done on it this spring, or late fall into spring. HIPSA paid Holliston Youth Baseball and Softball Association, got some dirt in, cut it out. Parks Department has a new piece of equipment to continually to edge the property. So again, or the infield. So we're in good shape there moving forward. The DPW's been there doing what they normally do to get the fields open. So again, we're moving forward. The fence thing, again, reliable fence is waiting for some part to come in to take care. I mean, again, all this stuff happens. It's just that again, springtime is tough. Everybody wants to run out and do things. And, unfortunately, the field is soft.
Right.
And
we go from like winter to spring like that.
And again, the field is soft. It is a high water table there. And it also prevents us from doing a lot of other things on that field. I mean, I've had requests over the years of people wanting to put turf on the field. It's like, I can't put turf on top of the leaching field for our wastewater treatment, our septic system here. So it's things like that where, again, it's just a tough spot. And I've had this constant refrain of when people say, well, what can we do about it? It's like, it's across the street. It's across the street, we could build a proper baseball facility. But that being said, just know that we are working on it. It's been a partnership between us and DPW and Parks, as it is every year. We all play nice in that sandbox. And just, again, if they're scheduled to be here one day and it rains like a banshee, they're not going to be back for 3 or 4 days because first it has to dry out, and second off, they have other projects to do. They schedule us on a Tuesday, and they may not be able to get back to us till, say, next Tuesday. You know, and construction is starting, by the way, back down in Mudville, I found out today on Monday, so.
Yeah. But I would like to request that the administration look at what are we going to do about these kids being slobs and not having any consequences. Because it's irritating to me that you are now paying extra for someone else to go clean up after them. So when I went to school and you were a slob, detention got you outside to pick up the bottles and the caps. This is disgusting. And the same thing with all the stuff that went on in the fall with the damage to bathrooms, etc. I'm fed up as a taxpayer that I have to pay for our kids being disrespectful. And I really would like you to consider that, not tonight, not a discussion, but really consider that because it's shameful.
Well, I think this is back to the empowering student voice. This is their community, their schools. They need to take better care of it. And I think that should be embedded in some of that work. But I also do want to comment on the fact that it is not just a school problem as well, because the community, the full community uses these buildings. So this is not just happening when students are in session or during athletics. It's recreation department. I mean, there are multiple groups that use our facilities, and that's where we run into that. It's weekends, it's ongoing. So there's not one answer, but I do agree with you that we need to put some more effort into empowering student voice to take the role that they can for the high school, for the middle school, and all the other buildings.
Amanda? As a tiny positive step, could we maybe like send an email to all the field coaches that use that turf and say, please remind your athletes before they leave to pick up their
Well, that's
trash?
so funny that you asked. I did ask Mr. Boudet to draft a memo, and I wanted him to talk to this tonight, and I did ask him to draft a memo that he could send out to our principals, to the staff, and specifically to coaches as well. So I think that would be an important next step. Great minds think alike.
Thank you. Is that it, Mr. Boudet?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Joni?
Holliston had our student-facing systems target review last week. It was held Monday through Thursday. Just to remind you, it was focused on curriculum and instruction, assessment, and student report. So they went to all 4 schools and actually went into classrooms, did observations. So I want to do a huge shout out to all the teachers for having outsiders come into their classrooms for observations, as well as district leaders and building leaders, as they all were part of focus groups and interviews for this group to compile this report. Once we receive this report, we will use this information to use the data to drive change that we need to drive. That's it.
Great, thanks. Mr. McCullough. We'll be up in a minute. I actually have to do the public comment. Yes, I will. All right. So I'm going to move on to public comment. I think we have 2 people here for public comment. So I don't know who wants to go first, but you have 3 minutes to address the school committee on whatever subject you'd like. So come on up to the podium and say your name and address and.
Thank you for having me. I'm James Jacobson, 12 Katy Way, Holliston. So I'm the father of 3 children under the age of 10. I also attended Holliston Public Schools from elementary Montessori program through high school graduation. I'm here to ask you to continue the conversation related to the health and welfare of all of our students with regard to the early start times. It's commendable that we were able to follow the science and allow high schoolers the rest that they require. The question is, does that progress need to be detrimental to our elementary children? A Boston Children's Hospital study published in October 2021 showed that children ages 9 to 11 who don't get enough sleep suffer from adverse effects to their developing brains and incur other neurological problems. This past year, I have seen the suffering firsthand. Although I may be one of the few to speak directly to you on this, the recent survey illuminates the overwhelming feelings of frustration and dissatisfaction. Recently, the Sunshine Protection Act unanimously passed the Senate. This means there's a good chance that starting next year, there will be over 3 months when Miller children are physically at school before the sun has risen, in effect making school start times an hour earlier for much of the year. Children being schooled during the graveyard shift does not strike me as progress. I implore you to use the same outside-of-the-box thinking that you used to get our kids back to school during the pandemic, to find a solution where no child in Holliston is starting school before 8 a.m. Let's research the efficiency of starting Miller and Placentino together. Consider the traffic reduction from fewer trips for families with multiple children and those who drive. Let's look into hiring an expert to evaluate the Woodland campus surrounding area to see how traffic flow could be better designed to accommodate the buses, cars, and pedestrians. The 3 schools have a lot of land. Let's be sure we're using it as efficiently as we can for the safety and benefit of all students. Many of these solutions could include expense cuts as well as other tangible benefits. The current situation may have been cost-free on paper, but there are real dollars being spent by our administrators directing traffic while mostly empty buses deliver kids to Miller as early as 7:05 a.m. The 2019 school start time change was, in many ways, a step in the right direction, but let's please consider it a work in progress until the health and welfare of all of our students is respected, rather than the issues being transferred to a less vocal cohort. We must do better by our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy, is it Tracy?
Yes. I didn't realize I'm going to be saying a lot of what you just said, so thank you.
Okay. Just give your name and address.
Okay.
You can just tell us what you're saying.
Okay. I'm Tracy Cohen. I live at 58 Indian Ridge Road South and have 2 children, one at Placentino and one at Miller. I'm here tonight to request that the conversation continue in regards to the safety and wellness of our children, specifically the challenges that exist on the Woodland Street campuses for the school start times. Yes, this was an issue that was discussed way back before COVID, but at that time, the acting superintendent had 2 feet out the door when such a major change was being debated. That was my personal observation and opinion when I attended those meetings. Thankfully, we now have Dr. Kuska and new faces on the school committee, so I'm just asking for your time to hear a few of the challenges that our children and families face. 1, the gap between the school start times of Placentino and Miller. I'm a working mom, and I show up late every day to work due to the huge gap between my 2 kids' start times for school. I'm also a mom that made the decision once the school start times passed to drive my Miller child to school every day just so she could sleep in. Asking her to walk down to our bus stop at 6:50 a.m. in the dark just seemed insane to me. I peel her out of bed daily despite religiously putting her to bed before 8 o'clock because she requires a ton of sleep. Miller school buses arrive at 7:05, 7:10 a.m. Kids have to then wait 20 to 25 minutes to be let into school and are then given sheets of paper as busy work until 7:50 a.m. because so many kids trickle in late. I usually drop my daughter off anytime between 7:20 and 7:45 each day. Yes, I'm horrible. I admit it. I'm doing this because I just feel like it's my only choice to get her to function at school. So yes, I send her late. During this time, I see a ton of kids trickle in late and wonder just how many of these are documented. Also, an employee from Miller once told me the kids are zombies getting into school. I was driving my daughter's friend to lacrosse the other day, and she was saying in the car that her teacher yells at them in the morning for never raising their hands and saying that they're all still asleep. Also, Placentino buses arrive late from the last bus run from Miller, so school is starting for them after 9 a.m. I can attest to this because one time I dropped my son off to school at Placentino late after his dentist appointment, and we were shocked to see that a bus had just pulled up to drop off kids when I was signing him in late. Second point is the traffic in the morning at Miller. The traffic has quadrupled since the change of school start times. Families like me are doing anything and everything to get their kids to get more sleep, so they skip the bus and they get driven to school. Having Mr. Keim and Ms. Linares direct traffic in the morning is impressive as to the commitment to their jobs. Yet it's horrifying, as I feel it's a huge waste of talent having our most valued and highly paid employees direct traffic. One could say that they are there to meet the kids and parents, which I get. Perhaps once a week would be sufficient for that. But there must be a better solution for this. Another issue is the multiple bus runs are polluting downtown, and the increase of gas prices only confirm that we need to explore other options. Also, there is a traffic study. It is my understanding, correct me if I am wrong, but there were funds allocated for a traffic study in January before the pandemic. So I am curious as to the status of those funds. Are they still available? Please consider a traffic study to, 1, analyze what might be possible at the Woodland campus for drop-off and pickup. 2, possibly utilize the road behind the school. Or 3, start Placentino and Miller at the same time.
Tracy, you have about 15 seconds.
Okay. Even organizing a subcommittee to gather more data on our options. Finally, the survey. When will the results be provided to us? And is there a way to get the teachers' feedback? Can we contact the union to provide them with a survey so we can hear straight from the teachers how these Miller children are faring, handling early morning hours and then the 10 to 10:30 a.m. lunch? It seems odd to me that the most accurate resource of the people that our children see day to day are not consulted on this. To conclude, Dr. Kuska, you came in as an acting interim superintendent during the most chaotic time, and forgive me for being blunt, but you and the school committee kicked ASS, navigating the COVID pandemic and getting our kids back to school. There's no doubt in my mind that if you revisit the school start times issue, you will not only keep this conversation going, but you will find some alternative solutions for our community that is well devoted to the safety and wellness of our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else for public comment, I'm going to end that portion of our meeting. And we're going to move on to presentations. We have a technology update from Mr. McLeod, our Director of Technology and Digital Learning. Mr. McLeod.
All right, thanks for having me back again. Good evening. All right, so tonight I wanted to provide an update on the goals that are related to technology in the district goals, and then share a hopefully a comprehensive replenishment plan for all phases of technology. So feel free to stop me with any questions. We'll go ahead and begin here with the goals update. All right, so the two goals that include a lot of technology are the innovative learning opportunities for obvious reasons and communication. So some things are going really well, and then there's some things where we really need to improve. So I'm going to discuss those two things right now. All right, so some great news. Our computer science endorsement program, which I believe is 2 years old, we launched in the middle of the pandemic. We had only a couple students graduate with that endorsement. But since then, we've really upped the numbers. I mean, the numbers were low, so when I say up the numbers, it's not like super high, but we're really proud of the percentage increase. So the momentum is there. I want to thank Sarah Kuhn. She's really been the driving force behind that. So part of it is this makerspace over here. So we're really excited about the work she's done there, too, as well. So we're happy about the enrollment in the computer science endorsement program. We're also really happy about the blended learning that's occurring. This is Placentino. So I wanted to show you a quick video and thank Winnie Carey for taking this video and the families for allowing us to show it. So these are first graders in our French Immersion program. So they're using Seesaw on the Chromebook. So that's a great example of the French, speaking the French, learning the French standards. And then also there's a digital learning standard, which is creating artifacts using digital tools and audio in that case. And they're using Seesaw and the Chromebook Flip that we provide to elementary students in K-1, which I'll speak to in a little bit.
Mr. McLeod, so they're practicing enunciating their vocabulary in French?
Correct.
And getting corrections from the computer, or just taping it and wasn't clear?
I believe they're just taping it, so it's a digital portfolio. The Seesaw platform offers digital portfolio, and then that's reviewed by the teachers. So it's all saved to the cloud, reviewed by the teachers, so they can give them feedback. And that was not choreographed. Winnie Carey just actually was walking the halls, went in, and this was happening in Lindsay St. Aubyn's classroom. For those navigating Prezi, this is the back button, this little arrow. Just a little tip. Sometimes it takes. So those are the two things that are going well. Some of the things that are going well.
This touch screen's going well.
What needs to improve? There's always room for improvement. We heard this loud and clear in the strategic planning survey. So we have a lot of communication tools, but the navigation is a challenge for many folks. And so we already know there's going to be some changes with PowerSchool, our student information system, in the fall. So the parent portal and the teacher portal are going to change. We think it's going to be a better change as far as navigation. The website, we just trained additional users yesterday on the website, so we're going to expand who can access the website and keep it up to date. The navigation of the website, we're also going to work. We had 3 people attend training, Sarah Kuhn, Winnie Carey, myself. We just went to website training, so we're learning all the tips and tricks to make the navigation better. The mass communication system is Bright Arrow, so we're looking for a way to align that with our website and PowerSchool. Bright Arrow sits within PowerSchool, but we want there to be alignment between all these products. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that's what we're going to shoot for. And then social media. We're going to expand our use of social media. We currently post some things to Facebook, but some of those things aren't built for Facebook, like an email newsletter, and that's not built for Twitter either. So we're going to look for other options with the social media. So anyway, this is what we're going to focus on in the future, is improving navigation, consistency, alignment with our communication tools. Again, stop me if you have questions. All right, so those are the district goals, some of the big ones. So let's dive into our devices. Student devices. We currently use Chromebooks in K-12. And with COVID, it was a one-to-one model. So we had a lot of COVID funding to help get us to that point. Well, now we're kind of going back to, I wouldn't say reverting completely to our older model, but we're just purchasing new Chromebooks for grades 6 and 9. And then every 5 years, we're going to purchase new for grades K and 1, the Flips Chromebooks that they will share. So what that means is there will be one full cart, and it's not a full cart. They have 12 on a shelf in each classroom. So that's how those classrooms will look. So if they need a full cart, they can just grab the 12 from the other classroom. We will have a cart of Chromebooks that is mobile, and that will be used for science classes. So that's the plan for KM1. And we met with Placentino administration. We got some feedback from the teachers, and we feel like right now this is the best model that we will share the Chromebook Flips. And that also lends to the stations and the centers that occur in those classrooms. All right. I'm going to talk about the replenishment plan. I will launch it, but I can come back and dig into that more later. So I'll pull that up because I'm guessing there'll be some questions about that. Let me go back here and just show you quickly what the budget might look like for student devices. This is just a forecast again with our current model. So 23-24, we're already planning for devices for then. So we're hopeful that we get a grant, which is called the Emergency Connectivity Fund. It's a federal grant that parallels to the E-rate program. And except the difference is with E-rate, we get 40% funding. This one, we get 100% reimbursement. So the reason we qualified is we send devices home that support remote learning. And that's why only grades 6 and 9 will qualify. Elementaries, we don't send the devices home. The other piece of that is we actually get reimbursed for staff devices. Now, we bought staff devices. We're in our second year of staff devices, so we don't need to buy new. But we do need spares, so we get $400 back per spare. So we spend about $900 on a staff device. Excuse me. So we only pay $500. The grant reimburses $400 of that $900. So we're hopeful that we will get that grant. If we do that, then the cost in the capital project in the fall would only be $40,000, and that would be for the software that manages the Chromebooks, and then also a PC lab at the high school. So the PC labs are currently desktops. We're going to a mobile cart model for the labs here at the high school as well. And then looking ahead, it's going to be the next year, again, two grade levels of Chromebooks, and then another PC lab at the high school. And then year 25, 26, we do Chromebooks and iPads, and then Chromebooks and then the K-1 flips the following year. And then finally, Macs last a long time. We'll do the Rams Mac Lab that following year, and then the high school Mac Lab after that.
Don, you have a question?
Dan, what do we use the PC lab for, and how much does that entail? Like, what do we have there in terms of, many of our kids, all of our kids have Chromebooks, so why do we have a PC lab?
Right, so the PC lab, we need the PC lab because of the resources that the programs use. For example, AutoCAD is a very resource-intensive program, and also our digital art classes require Adobe products, so they don't run on Chromebooks. So we just, I feel like it always will be a component, having PC laptops or Windows, or Macs, I guess, if we wanted to, but it's always going to be part of the high school, I feel, because of those programs.
I was going to say, to piggyback off of that, I'm presuming that you would need like the PC lab for the computer science track.
Correct.
Right? Like, do you need towers for the computer science class with the different software and?
No, we've the laptops that we bought a couple years ago to augment the computer science program. Those are actually our best performing devices across the district, better than our desktops. Okay. So if you spec out the proper laptop, it will do everything we want. And then these days, as you know, the laptops are getting better and better. Mm-hmm. So we just need to invest, I won't say heavily, but we need to make sure we get a robust device to do all these things.
Right, so this is going to show my ignorance about it, but like, so a lot of kids have like gaming computers where they need the towers. Are the laptops like that powerful? I guess I'm trying to compare like.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I hear what you're saying about the gaming.
Well, I'm just trying to wrap my head around.
Yes.
Someone in the computer science track really doing a lot of different software, data, et cetera. So I'm just trying to.
It's heat. It's heat that comes off the video card. That's the thing they're having, or off the processor. You have the tower to create more space for heat to dissipate.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. No, now I understand.
But the AutoCAD program, that takes a ton of space, right? Isn't that one of the reasons we need?
It does. The projects take a lot of space, although there's cloud versions now. But it's really just example. Those laptops we bought 2 years ago have 32 gigs of RAM. So the staff laptops we have 8 gigs of RAM. I have a staff laptop. I'm fine. I do a lot of stuff on my laptop, but it's absolutely fine. So 32 gigs, you can imagine, the students are not running into any issues.
So maybe PC lab is like a misnomer because they're not really PCs, they're all laptops? Or do we have actually some PCs?
They're PC laptops.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I should have clarified that. They're
Okay.
PC laptops,
All right.
yeah. All right, so, yep, and then the Mac labs come later. questions? Okay, again, it's just a forecast with our current models. We should hear about the grant. I was telling Mr. Bidet, we should hear about that by June 1st, and that will impact our capital request.
Can you just say the name of that grant again?
It's called the ECF, Emergency Connectivity Fund.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dan, the grant, I saw the number 152,000, but then the actual number, assuming you get the grant, would be about 40,000 for a capital request in 23-24. Do you also anticipate that that grant would be available in the additional years, 24-25 and ongoing?
No, I don't anticipate it's,
Okay.
it's a COVID-related grant
Thank you.
to support remote learning. Yes. Wish it was. All right, so that's a snapshot of our student devices. Quickly, the staff devices. Here's what we're forecasting. Again, just a reminder, laptops are provided to basically everybody in our school system that requires one. So instructional, administrative staff all have laptops, including our office staff. So part of that is our disaster recovery plan. Like if something happened to a building, the staff could move to another building and work on the laptop without reconfiguring a desktop. So, and then Chromebooks for support staff. So the classroom technology, just to give you a quick snapshot of where we are there, because that's part of this equation. We feel like right now the model for teachers to be successful is a high quality laptop, so we're going to make sure that happens. And then we found the new projectors that we're purchasing, they actually have built-in wireless technology. So what I'm doing right now with my laptop connecting wirelessly to the board, the projectors come with that. And the really nice thing about that is the Chromebooks will connect to that, and the iPads that we have in the buildings will connect to that. So any device that the students are using, they'll be able to share to the screen. It'll be secure too. The students need a PIN from the teacher to share to the screen. But it really reinforces that sharing and presentation of content.
Can the teacher change the pin?
Absolutely. The teacher has total control.
What's the name of these projectors? Do you know? Is there a name?
I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but
No,
yeah,
it's okay.
it's Epson is the model we buy, and we have a lot of luck. It's called the Eye Projection app that's built into that product.
Amanda's looking for her
I
district.
was going to say.
Yes.
She's like, she's sitting here going, oh, how do I use that?
Well, we buy Dell computers. Hey, it's no secret. So yes,
Yeah.
we buy Epson projectors. Sorry, I was just being weird about that. I didn't want to go there. I want to go back here. We'll come back to you later. All right, so what does the budget for staff look like for the next few years? So the good news is this $16,000 for projectors. We buy approximately 32 projectors every year, so approximately 8 in every building. That costs about $16,000, which we pull out of operating budget. It's not a capital request.
Okay.
So we're forecasting. We don't want to take out projectors that are working, so we're just going to phase in. Every year, 32 classrooms are going to have this new wireless technology. So it's not going to happen in every classroom overnight, but it's the most economical approach. And then in the year 26-27, this is a large chunk of money that's going to be required for staff laptops to be refreshed. And I'll speak to, it's the school year 26-27, so the funding request, that was my elbow. The funding request will come the year before. So just so everyone knows, it'll come in the fall, spring capital before that year. And then after that, we'll refresh the paraprofessionals and the office staff. Stacy?
No, I'm just looking at you with a sad face because 27 is when our babies are graduating.
Oh.
Like you just spent,
Yeah.
that really like.
That's right,
It's gonna
27.
it's gonna be here like that.
I
And I
know.
was just like,
Wow.
your baby, no, not your baby.
Yeah, no,
your-
it is.
your
Mine not,
older-
yeah.
Sorry, it just, you
Yeah.
really
Weird to
like.
see that number as
Yeah.
something that's
Yeah.
been planned out.
Yeah, that's as far as my mind could go.
Yeah.
Any farther? I don't know.
No.
Anyway, that's going to be a large cost. Maybe there'll be some grant that'll come around, who knows, but hopefully we can prepare for that. All right. Need my elbow this time. All right, so that's a snapshot of the classroom and the staff devices. All right, infrastructure, I spoke to this in middle of March, so I won't spend a ton of time, but these are all the pieces of the infrastructure. I didn't touch on broadband and firewall because that's covered in operating budget, but we have 2 new firewalls this year, in case you're wondering. Because of cybersecurity, I wanted to make sure we upgraded to the latest and greatest, and we did, and so far so good. But one thing to consider is, and I've talked to Mr. Boudet about this, currently we have multiple 1 gig connections into our schools. Again, with the new fiber I'm proposing and the new Wi-Fi and all of that, that 1 gig is eventually going to need to be upgraded. The cost of fiber and these connections is coming down, which is very nice. So I feel like in a couple years we will upgrade our broadband connections to match everything else we're doing. I got to stop. My wife says that my elbows are really sharp. All right, so I'm going to stand out here. So anyway, those are all the pieces. The one thing just that we're scoping out right now is the high school auditorium. This is not going to be on the spring capital, but we're looking at the lighting system in the auditorium, and the ceiling lights are LED, but the spotlights and all the color lights are not LED. Mm-hmm. So we're scoping out a project for that because the lighting is a challenge during the shows. And the good news with that lighting is it's all going to be portable. Oh. We've been told by the vendor, so we can take it to the next building, whatever that looks like. Even the dimmer panel, which we're going to scope out as well, needs to be replaced. That will be portable as well.
Wow. Is it portable in the way that it could be taken to the middle school if they needed to use it, or to Miller if they needed to use it?
That's a great question. Not really, because all these banks of lights are way high in the ceiling, and it takes like a scissor lift to get up there and get them.
So portable-ish.
Like portable meaning like the entire structure of these banks of lights can be delivered to a new stage.
Yeah, meaning like.
Which means if
we had a new
school,
project, like, so I asked Dan this question of, if we ended up investing a lot into the high school, we have to kind of think about that when we do it. So I just, sorry, was I interrupting you?
No, I was going to say, just not from the auditorium perspective, because more than likely it would still be the same
Well,
auditorium.
that's maybe possible, but I just asked the question as to if we did have another project and, will we be able to take that with us, any of these things with us? And that was what that
No, I was just saying
question was.
that because MSBA was clear that we
They
get
may-
a
they may
300-person
not.
auditorium.
Right. Okay, that's not big enough, but whatever.
300
Anyway,
person.
I asked the question. so
That's
you
it?
should answer.
That's it? Go to
That could
Medfield, for
change,
example.
though. That could change, though.
Well, anyways, let's let Dan finish because we don't want to get on that
Yep.
road right now.
Right.
All right, so here's what the capital budget, again, all these projects come out of capital. A lot of them are E-ratable. But here's what I'm forecasting. So for next year, and this will be the fall, this coming fall, I'm forecasting $150,000. And that's the high school auditorium, basically. They gave us a quote for a little over $100,000, but then we've added the dimmer panel. So we're waiting for that quote to come back. After that, the capital, stop this. Is a little slim on the next 2 years, and then 26 is $250,000, and that's going to be, I got to go back to my list. Secondary Wi-Fi and the next phase of the switching project.
Oh, right. That's right.
So again, much of that is E-ratable. So
That doesn't
if it
include
currently-
the laptops, right?
correct. This is infrastructure.
That's separate. That's separate.
And I'll put it all together on the next slide.
Right, right.
But okay, back up.
So, Dan, the 26, 27, $250,000 figure, that would be reduced by 40%, or is that the reduced E-rate figure, the 250?
Good question.
And you can get back to us on it, too. No.
Yes.
So-
That would have been already reduced by 40%.
Okay.
So that's the actual cost, the 250. Okay, so this is a summary of what I'm expecting as far as total cost of all projects. This is student devices, staff devices, and infrastructure all together. And again, none of this is covered in operating. So for 23-24, which is going to be 22-23 funding, which means fall capital, $192,000. So that's the auditorium that I just spoke about, and then the $42,000 for the lab. And that's assuming we get ECF funding, which I am confident we will. So this is what I would be recommending in the fall, just right now, preliminarily. And then the following year, we had the Chromebooks and then the high school PC lab. That's the price tag for that. And then Chromebooks and iPads, Chromebooks and network, and then Chromebooks lab and network. Questions?
Lisa?
Do you guys, I guess this would be either Susan or Keith, do you guys communicate these numbers to either Travis or the FinCom? I mean, I know we're just getting them and they're new, but would it make sense for us to communicate them to the town as just a heads up kind of thing?
They'll be part of our next 5-year cycle. I mean, that 5-year capital plan is ever evolving. I mean, we keep moving things back, truthfully, because we haven't needed to fix X, Y, and Z. So, we are stacking things up a little bit, but again, we break things when they're broken, fix things when they're broken, we don't break things down. So, we fix things when they're broken, but yes, no, we would be adding this, now that Dan has put this together, we would be adding this and adjust, because there are pieces for capital already in, for technology in the capital plan. This just shores more the projections up.
Okay. I'm going to try to align it to the 2022-27 strategic plan, so we'll probably go out to the 27 year with PD, with the capital, and with, what was the other item? But anyhow, I'm trying to align all of those buckets for 5 years.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Questions on this slide?
Thank you.
We're good. So you just want to move on to that?
Do you want to see the spreadsheet?
Yes, please.
Do you want me to go in there?
Do you mind?
Not at all. I was ready.
Dan, this was a really great presentation, though. I'm really.
The fancy Prezi.
Really doing a great job.
Thank you.
Understand that, because this was where I was getting totally confused, but I think now I get it.
Okay.
And then,
Great.
Dan, I just wanted you to, just to preface this with, I just wondered if you could just talk a little bit about how this has shifted since you had done this presentation in like the spring of 2020 before everything kind of shifted. I just didn't know if there was
Sure.
any major shifts in what you've done differently.
Yeah, so great question. So this is our refreshment plan, although it's more detailed now. So our refreshment plan before COVID was a gradual phasing in of the one-to-one, sort of really slow, economical. COVID turned it into one-to-one. So now,
The magic wand.
right, exactly like that. So
You get a call.
from that, do you want me to zoom in, or is this hard to see? I'm sure it's hard to see.
Can you guys see it?
I'll zoom in a little
I
bit
can't
more.
see anything.
So basically, this is where we are right now, 21-22. Yellow is grade 6 and green is grade 9. Although we found a lot of success, and this was COVID. This was just by accident. So COVID, we were delivering Chromebooks, quickly, constantly, and we were delivering them mid-year. And we actually, reflecting on the mid-year process, it's proven to be very effective in many ways because we have a lot of staff, and we don't have to have these large family events, and people miss the family events. We can get the Chromebooks to every kid quickly. Like the 5th grader gets them in the middle of the year. They get really excited about going to 6th grade. They hit the ground running when they get to 6th grade. And the same thing with our 8th graders. We refresh their Chromebooks, and then that 8th grade device will last 4.5 years, which is a half year longer than what we've originally forecast. So we're kind of pleased with the results of that. So that's, even though it says 6 and 9, it's really handed out in grades 5 and 8. So that's the secondary plan. And again, this is just, if we keep our current model, swinging down to Miller and Placentino. I'm going to go to my computer shortly because this is not working. All right, hang on. All right, so the plan for Miller is, it's going to work like this. So this is grade 5, grade 4, grade 3. So as an example, grade 5 is going to have a 5-year-old device halfway through the year, and then middle of the year they get a brand new device. So that's what the 5 and 1 means. So they get a 5-year-old device half the year, and the devices are much better quality than it used to be. So 5 years is really not pushing it. And as a matter of fact, the neighboring district is using 6 years as their max for Chromebooks. So that's why this could change if our Chromebooks are going to last longer. So right now, this is what I'm forecasting. But again, the 5th graders get a 5-year-old device, which will perform fine, and then they get a new one. The 3rd graders get a 3-year-old device, which is coming from the 8th graders. And then the 4th graders will have a 4-year-old device. So that's the plan for Miller. We will not be buying right now any new devices for Miller, but I'm very confident the devices they receive will be, except for the 5th grade, the devices will perform fine based on our experiences. And then 2nd grade, we'll be getting a 5-year-old device. Again, I'm confident the performance will be fine. Again, the 2nd grade was not planned to be a 1-to-1 initially, but after COVID, we found the digital resources have been very effective, and we can teach our digital learning standards effectively if the students have access to a device. So they're not going to be taking them home. They're going to have access to devices in the classroom. And again, we have enough devices. They're 5 years old, yes, but they will perform fine, and the students will have access to these digital resources.
Do the Miller students take their devices home?
The 5th graders take them home. Right now, the 3rd and 4th do not.
Okay.
We are having those conversations because we do have a lot of digital resources, so we wonder if taking them home would benefit many students so they could have additional practice and additional enrichment. So we're exploring those things right now to see if that would be effective, but we will.
So, Dan, the grade 1, it's 5, so that would be a 5-year-old device. And then the grade K is
yes.
a 1.
Yeah, and I should have frozen that row, but I would ignore that 5 because that's this year. That is a 5-year-old device. But next year when they start sharing them, they're going to share new devices.
Okay.
Or not new devices, but only 2-year-old devices. So we do have 5-year-old flips, but those will go away. So the ones we bought last year during COVID, the K and 1 will start sharing those.
Okay.
And then the 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year, and so we refresh those flips in that year.
Got it.
Other questions?
Okay, I have staff, infrastructure, and then a summary. Do you want to spend time on those, or?
I think now, at least I think now it makes sense to me, so I'm good.
Okay. And just notice the iPads are mixed in here. So we have, for example, 60 iPads at Miller for refreshment. So you'll see pockets of iPads mixed in because we do find those very effective for content creation. And green screening and iMovie and all those fun things.
Okay. Can you just touch on this, just to briefly touch on the staff infrastructure stuff, all those summaries at the bottom? Just in case everybody didn't get a chance to see them real quick.
Correct. So again, COVID, we were able to refresh a lot of our staff last year. And so the staff devices are fairly new. The teacher devices, like the one you have up here, it gets a lot of, I won't say abuse, but a lot of use. The teachers are taking them home. They're using them in the classroom. These things are constantly moving around the room. So we're forecasting that we need to refresh teacher devices first. The paraprofessionals and the office staff will go the next year. And these are the costs. Again, right now, the current cost for that laptop is about $900.
Do you expect those costs to go down or stay about the same?
to Mr. Bidet's point, like last meeting, they'll probably stay about the same. The quality is getting better in most cases. So, any questions about the staff? Infrastructure, this is a lot of numbers. What I did was I kind of listed all the projects that would fall under infrastructure in Holliston and how we kind of break them up. So for example, elementary Wi-Fi and Ramsden High School Wi-Fi are separate because we typically don't do all of that at once. First, it's a lot of work for our staff to do all that at once, but it's also a huge cost to the town to do that all at once. So we try to break that up. So right now, for example, our Wi-Fi is relatively new. So here we are sitting, the high school and middle school are only 2 years old. Elementary is brand new, and that number is driving a lot of the infrastructure project because the technology is so good. There's the Cat 6 cabling. I'm not going to, unless you want me to list all these. So this is the year that's been of use. And all the greens and ones is where we have to buy new. And again, many of these projects are E-ratable, so we will get that 40% reimbursement.
Excellent.
The exception would be the auditorium projects and anything with phones.
So do we know ahead of time how long would these be ratable?
We don't. It honestly depends on the presidency. So whoever is president hires the director of the FCC, and that person is the kind of the decision maker. But in my experience, E-rate has stayed pretty consistent, and Mr. Bidet was in this role for some time. It's been pretty consistent. So unless something crazy comes along, I expect it to stay the same.
Don't say that.
The big thing they look for is affordability. So what they look is what do poorer communities, poorer areas of the country, what do they struggle with? And that's where they struggle with internet access. And that's where this program changed from things like telephony over to internet access. And so that's where, again, until basically we've got Wi-Fi in the street, they're going to continue on this path. So the next 3 to 5 years, I don't expect too many changes. Beyond that, we'll see. By that time, we all may have chips in our heads or something, so we won't even need computers. So.
All right, summary tab, again, is a combination of everything all together and the projected cost. So you'll see 2023, so that would be funding for this fall, or funding this fall. I'm projecting 192,000, 110,000 will be covered by the ECF funding. So that would leave 82,000. And then all the other years combined, you'll see the numbers I had in the other presentation. So the 432, 269, I wish it was consistent, but that's technology.
Right.
So.
This is great.
I know.
Thank you. This is
Yeah,
really
this
well.
is,
A lot of work.
Yeah.
this is very good. This is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Em.
having me back.
Appreciate it.
Any other
A lot of
questions?
numbers, a lot of work. No, thank you. All right. And we will move on to Ms. Menard with the review of the March 16th Professional Development Day.
I will take you on a very brief journey
Okay.
of March 16th. I'm just going to mention.
Are you getting up on the big
a
board
few.
too, or?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Not that
I'll
way,
just sit
not
there.
walking, but
Yeah.
I need the
Aw.
Quick. I'm just doing
Yeah,
5
gotcha.
slides.
Okay.
So,
I could hold up my computer.
I can see that you're on it right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get myself out of here. I think it's frozen, Keith.
Oh, good.
Oh, boy. Stop sharing.
We do nothing, it's not yet.
Reminds me of when we used to book the Mac Lab, and you'd go to put the kids in all day, and the internet would be down.
Oh, absolutely. That's like,
And it was the one day you could do this project.
Oh, boy.
We're not quite there nowadays, but I'm dating myself.
So, Dan, maybe this is a question with, you were talking about hardwiring so that you could, put onto a screen. Is that something that would happen to this screen too? Where we'd be able to project without him plugging in like that, or no?
You just did.
But we're plugged in now.
No,
Dan was not, though.
Oh, but you weren't plugged in
was.
before, okay.
No, Dan was not.
Okay.
I worked that time, I thought you were.
So it already works that way?
Oh, yeah.
I just see you plug in all the time, so I didn't know that it would work.
I was up earlier, just he was having a little.
Okay.
And the Zoom, remember, didn't work well.
No, it does not, because you can't hear.
So we're not doing that again.
Right.
So please keep in mind, this is not all the options. These were just some of the options. Can you please move forward? Thank you.
Just wave your hand.
In Placentino, we invited Dr. Khalees Warren back. She was at Miller and Placentino. She was continuing Holliston's journey. This time she was making authentic connections by exploring race and culture. Some of the Placentino teachers had additional STAR assessment reporting training, really digging into that data. Our occupational therapist had a training on the occupation of worry training, which really looked at their increasing their understanding of how anxiety is developed in the brain, and also evidence-based treatment strategies and interventions. Our school adjustment counselors and psychologists looked at school refusal avoidance behaviors and interventions, and our science teachers looked at digging into the engineering standards. Thank you. Miller also joined Khalees, as I said. They also worked on grades 3 and 4 Montessori, worked on those next 2 bullets. And the guided and independent reading work, they were looking at use of lesson cards, skills and strategies targeted for small group instruction, oral and reader response, providing textual details, and graphic organizers for responding. They also worked on unit work in literacy. For the next 2, grade 4 concentrated on the book club work, really looking at the materials and the scope and sequence for book clubs, and also looking at how to apply independent learners, looking at their reading behaviors and skills and strategies. Grade 5 ELA and social studies looked at analyzing paired passage results. Science teachers dug into those science standards and engineering standards, and special educators had some more professional development on reading instruction.
What are paired passages?
So it's a reading, a type of reading resource that they use. So it's really looking at the results that the students, they get from taking assessments, and then trying to analyze those and looking at how they can make improvements. At Rams, they really dug deep into MCAS training and vocabulary, didn't matter your content area or grade level, really looking at how they can help support students in MCAS testing. And everyone also, in addition, dug into vocabulary training for specific content areas. ELA teachers are very skilled in that, in programs such as if you're trained to be a science teacher or a social studies teacher. A lot of programs do not concentrate on that, so we really need to give our teachers extra support in helping students understand reading in the content areas. And finally, at the high school, their departments continue to work on the standards, the discussions of the standards, and aligning those. And finally, some of the district work that happened, this is not certainly all of it, but our SLPs, our speech language pathologists, were looking at alternative communication device training. That could be an iPad, that could be many different things, right? Or safety care training. The nurses have been continuing to work together, taking classes, nurse-based classes from Northeastern. Our performing arts, K through 12, are getting together and having those rich vertical alignment conversations and talking about the standards. The fine arts continues to get together, pre-K through 12, and they're really looking at planning that curriculum out, studio habits, and at the high school, art saves lives. Our librarians are continuing really digging deep into what we have in our libraries, kind of breaking it out into genres and making sure that we have a diverse library collection. And then also our English language learning teachers, they've been concentrating on really getting more enriched in the standards that are for ELS students. So we continue to offer our wide variety, and next meeting I will tell you about our last PD meeting, our last PD day that just happened this week. That is it.
Any
Thank
questions?
you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No questions? All right.
So,
Do you have a question, Minnie? Go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to, if you could touch base on what Kelly's Woburn, what content she works on a little bit.
Right. So this time we broke it up into secondary and elementary. So what she just did yesterday? Wow. Okay, yesterday with the secondary is what she did in March with the elementary. So she's really continuing that conversation on authentic connections by really exploring race and culture. So she's giving a lot of the teachers diving deep into how you support students from different cultures, how to address it appropriately in classrooms, not making anyone feel marginalized, how to have difficult conversations in classrooms if something arises. So a lot of the PD also revolves around getting in small groups, teachers to teachers, and kind of practicing with each other. If teachers witness something they're uncomfortable with, strategies that they could do to help, one of their other teachers, or what strategies teachers can use, and they're also then using the strategies with students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to move on to policies. So there's 4 different policies. Is the policy subcommittee prepared to review over these, okay?
Yes, and if you see, I just connected wirelessly on my seat.
Thank you.
See that?
All right. So we're going to start with staff funds.
Yes, so
These should be on your packet, everybody. So.
Yes. GBEBC, I know Stacy and I'm going to do this together, but is an existing policy, and there are some slight changes that we'd like to vote as an amendment tonight. We're deleting that first paragraph, and you can see, I think that was the only change in this one, wasn't it?
So a couple of things that I noticed were things like where we have school district, like we generally say like Holliston Public Schools and then say HPS, anywhere that's in like an MASC policy, just to, make it, just to change it so it's more Hollistonized and at least in that.
So here's the proposal for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, we have new school committee members, a new superintendent. We did not do policy last year in terms of, we were focused on COVID policies.
Yes, right.
So we are trying to get through some things that have come up this year, but we're trying to move away from that reactionary focus on these policies as a reaction and move towards starting again from the beginning with the A's.
Yep.
Because we're trying to reconcile our policy manual with online, and that is when we will focus on more Hollistonized stuff as well. So we're just trying to get through content, let alone really that's, and I'm being honest about that. This, we're trying. This year is not a normal year, and so we're trying to get through it. So
I agree.
But I did just make I made the 2 edits on the Holliston Public School District and Holliston School Committee.
Yes, but my personal plan is that we can spend time starting this summer to really reconcile the online with this, and then make sure that it's all in the right format and saying all the same things. So I hope everyone's okay with that, because that's.
And also Lisa Aronian, was making copies of the policy manual so that every school committee member has one, because typically it's only the subcommittee that has them, and then we have access to online, but we feel like everybody should have one.
But we're finding discrepancies.
We are.
We're
We found
finding
some that
things,
were-
so.
Right, because those haven't been reconciled with each other for several years. Yes, Minnie?
So when you say Holliston employee, are we included as subcommittee?
We are not employees.
No, we're not
Yeah, so we are not, right? So we are not covered by this, number one. Now, the teachers, like many students give them gift cards on Valentine's Day. So do they have to declare that? How does that work?
So that's under class gifts right here. This is the existing language. We didn't change any of that. That's under Mass State Ethics. So if it's worth $50 or more, when the teacher knows on the gift is from the class, it's fine for a single class to donate up to $150, but she cannot accept, she cannot accept $50, more than $50 from one individual in the classroom.
So say if my child turns up in a classroom giving a $100 gift card, she'll not accept it.
So I just also, and maybe this would help Minnie, so all the public school teachers, we have to do like an online conflict of interest training. So the teachers all know this, like it's a mandatory training that we have to do every like 3 years or something
I see.
at the beginning of the year.
Right, so
But
it's
the
like-
amounts used to be higher, is that right, Amanda? Like it used to be, for like a class gift, there was, you know, if somebody gave a certain amount, so it's always been 150? Okay.
Yeah, because that's, I don't, the teachers know it, but I don't know if the parents know it.
Right.
So,
The reason, that's why we wanted to bring this front and center, because the next one, GBEBD, we did not have, and that's a new policy, so it relates, these policies are connected, and that's why we wanted to, I think that we talked about removing the language at the top, because we were not going to be collecting money that way in student activity accounts to begin with.
so
It's
I-
been so long since we had this
Yeah, I
edit
mean,
that I
this-
try to remember.
if you took out the top because it's law, I'll say that's fine. But it still is illegal to do that. You
Right.
can't maintain non-student activity funds in a student
Right.
activity account.
Right.
Actually, I think this was our recommendation from our legal counsel, now that
Correct.
we put it down in legal references.
Okay.
That's why.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm just
I was
saying,
trying to
it's
remember.
law, so you're being redundant, but if you
Right.
wanted to kind of wear suspenders and a belt, you know, then it's fine.
No, she
No,
felt
we don't
should
like that look.
We don't like the ad sound.
So that,
So
Joe
would it be something that maybe send out to parents, like, do not send in individual gift cards to teachers and, I don't know, I mean.
I don't know if that's our purview to do that. It's really, if the teacher receives something, they're supposed to disclose that.
Right.
It's on the individual, and that's why because whether we send that out or not, it can't be our
I see.
situation to manage, because the individual has to be compliant, and that's why biannually, we have to have all staff do the Mass State Ethics. So last
Okay,
year,
I
I did
get
have
it.
all, and new staff, and then we'll be doing it again in the fall.
I see, now okay, I see what you're saying.
It's like teacher licensure. We can't monitor all teacher licensures. It's on the individual to do their professional obligation, so
Right.
it's.
Catherine?
So I wasn't able to be at the last policy meeting, but at the one before that, we were looking at these numbers, and we're gonna check with the legal counsel about those numbers.
That's what we did.
Yeah,
That's
she
where this
confirmed that.
came from,
Correct.
yeah.
So just so I'm understanding this correctly, every parent in the class could give a teacher $50, but if everybody gets together to buy one gift, it has to be less than $150. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's
correct.
All right, am I understanding that right?
Correct. And that's state ethics, that is.
No, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
I'm understanding it, because
Yeah.
there's no logic to those numbers, right? But that's how that works?
That's why we verified with her.
Because the idea is to keep it in, like, if it's a class gift, you don't know how much each one. The premise behind this is, if I want my Johnny to get a better grade, I'm going to give $100, right? So it's to avoid that thought process that someone might be trying to buy a grade, which I'm not saying they would, but that's kind of the thinking behind it.
I understand what you're saying, and
Which is why they try to, they really prefer the anonymous piece for that reason, and I hear you,
Right.
but.
So again, I think that answers my question. So 15 kids can give $50 to their teachers, but together they cannot give more than 150. Do I read that right?
Yes.
That's pretty much it, right?
But I also don't want to be encouraging gifts at all, because as a teacher, I worked in a very poor school, and I never wanted gifts from my students, but I would rather a drawing, so I don't want to start getting into that.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify because.
Yes, that is correct. All right, so
Okay.
So are we comfortable with,
just voting as amended.
well, can we accept Joni's change of deleting that first paragraph because it is the law that we have referenced down in the.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just made the 2 edits on the Holliston, so yes, it'll be voted as amended in this version.
Okay, and we have cross-referenced this with KHA, public solicitations in the school, and we added the reference from MASC as well.
Right, you're adding in today's date, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Did you want us to vote for these individually, or you want to do them all at one time?
I think we have to do it one by one because one of them will be a first
you're right,
reading.
yes, no. Okay.
And just in case something goes back.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the revision of policy GBEBC staff funds as amended.
Can someone on the policy committee do that motion?
Anybody can, I'm asking.
Okay, moved by Amanda. Second by Dawn.
Moved by Amanda, seconded by Dawn, all in favor? You just have to raise your hand, thank you. All right, next up, states.
I think we should skip GBEBD just because that's the first reading and do the ones that are revisions, if you're okay with that.
Okay. So IKFA.
I'll jump, that one's an easier revision, so let's do that one, yeah.
Okay.
So this one really is just cleaning up language. Instead of calling it early graduation, the following are a list of criteria for consideration of early graduation. And we added that line, in the exceptions to this requirement may be considered. Because if you recall, we had this situation arise last year, a student who was very, very close. We had a letter come from the guidance counselor to clarify while they didn't quite make the GPA, they were so close and had other commendable qualities and experiences. And that's why we wanted to have this in there moving forward.
And change the GPA from must to should.
Right.
If you read the rest of the policy, it talks a lot about leaving the district early because we can no longer offer it. You've sort of gone, their skills and talents are extraordinary. We can't offer them more. Does it make sense to hold the line at some sort of level? And if you don't like 3.75, is there a different level? Or do we really want it to be, we'd like you to have 3.75, but we can have exceptions, but we don't really delineate why or what we would consider for the exceptions. It's just a thought or to talk about.
I hear you. I think at this point in the world where we've experienced this global pandemic that totally brought in a layer of social emotional issues, I think there could be exceptions where the student may not have the 3.75, but we have exhausted all that we can provide for that student. I think we had the example last year, quite honestly, I'm trying not to go back to a personal.
But some students, it's about their maturity level and where they are in their future and their 5-year plan, and so it'd be really hard to capture that and know for certain what that's going to be. But I think that's where it gives you the discretion that they have to come present. I have to approve it, the principal, the counselor, and then you get the final approval.
Just along those lines, the last sentence, it says student's guidance counselor and/or the principal's designee also provide a written support. Shouldn't that should be an and? I feel like if we're going to allow people to leave, then shouldn't the principal also?
Yes.
Not just or, but an and,
Well,
like
that's
the guidance
not how we've
counselor
been
and.
doing it. I mean, the last, we had
But
two,
isn't that
I
how
think.
it happened last year? Was we
No,
had
I
the
think it was
principals?
just the counselor. The principal,
I believe Nicole spoke directly
yes,
about
but she
that.
didn't write the counselor wrote the letter.
Okay,
Wasn't required.
okay.
Well, could we consider requiring it if we're going to waive this GPA requirement? So we have 2 people looking over and assuring that you fit within this exception, you've exhausted this, what we can offer here, and you've had those 2 conversations and recommendations.
Well, that conversation happened, if you want to capture that. I just don't know that I want to have both people writing the letter. That's what this is. Who's writing the
I think
written
I'm just looking
statement?
for them to have support, that they're
Yes.
speaking, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know that the principal supports this decision, just like, Ms. Bottomley did last time. So and have it as an and not an or.
that's all.
So you want them to do 2 letters or sign the same letter? I just don't want to have 2 full letters, because if we write "and," then both people are going to write a letter.
Yes, I want to make sure that both people have had the conversation and agree with the recommendation, and we've.
Right, especially if we're
We can
looking at
have that.
exceptions.
We can have that without 2 letters. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
We could add something, collaborate and, you know what I mean? I just-
Collaborate and are in agreement with. Collaborate with the student and are in agreement with the recommendation.
Okay, written
So,
best for
and
the students' calendar, and,
You want it principal or principal's designee, because it could be the assistant principal.
it could be the principal or or the principal's designee.
So I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but I can put that will, well, because I mean, the principal makes the recommendation,
We can say must review.
will review,
Well,
and
don't they have
must
to
also
review
provide written
also?
support.
Don't they have to review every, one that comes through there anyway, right?
Mhm.
I just want to know that the principal is in support of this and that they, they must review to make sure that all of these
So
things
this
happen.
might work then. The student's guidance counselor and the principal's designee will review and must also provide written support.
Okay.
It's not saying that it's 2 letters.
Yes,
But there has to be
correct.
a written.
Okay, are you okay with that? I'm okay with
Capturing it in writing.
Yesterday, Nicole made the change and said it's school counselor, not guidance counselor.
Counselors now. They're
Okay,
no
so we
longer
have to-
called
Oh, okay, they're not
okay.
called okay, that's
Oh,
good
yeah,
to
that's
know.
why I changed that, yeah.
Right.
Sorry, that's my fault.
Oh, okay.
I did that, sorry.
Well, I got in trouble last year on that one when I was still principal. They're like, I'm a school counselor, not a guidance counselor. I'm like,
Wasn't it just students counsel that we left it for that reason, not school counselor?
The
Well,
student's
there was
counselor?
There was stuff in there and it was confusing me, so I just, Nicole
It's just
said.
students counselor.
Students
I
counselor.
think.
Could that be adjustment counselor though? or-
I feel like
That would be
that's just,
adjustment counselor.
yeah,
All
adjustment.
right, so
counselor.
be their camp I just,
counselor.
what was the word that I put in there, because that's what's,
School
School counselor.
Yes. You had guidance, but they're no longer, right?
But I wrote guidance, she wrote
Counselor.
school counselor.
So
Right.
adjustment counselors are not school counselors, correct?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So,
wanted to make sure we had the right word.
I
because
was
it was
wondering,
school.
Susan, if you want to add provide a written support, because there is some ambiguity, and say if everybody on this table changes and somebody is looking at that policy, they would be like, they need letter from both school counselor and principal designate.
Provide a written support.
I don't think that.
Provide written
I don't know if
support
you
would
need
be,
to
the-
have
I don't
a-
think you need it, and
no.
it's actually grammatically not working.
No, okay.
Now you
Alright.
have 2 spaces.
That's okay, we can fix that.
Do you need the also?
Where?
Must and also, we just take the one of them out. Must
Review
provide.
and must.
Okay, any other, more questions about, Catherine?
At the bottom there, Cynthia, you made a comment that said, were we gonna add more language here where it says academically talented?
Oh, yeah, that's what we were just talking about. But we didn't, I don't know if we need to add something more to
Well, I would just,
that.
actually, just the word talented. Talent is an inherent quality, and I think that there's a lot of space for grit and persistence. So I was just
Yes.
wondering if maybe we could use the word accomplished instead of talented.
Sure.
Where?
Where are you?
Under the R. Toward the bottom. Very
Oh,
bottom.
hold on, so you're down in, she's down in the
Oh, we're
requirements
not
part.
there yet.
We're not
Yeah.
in there.
So then, you want to do you'll vote as
We'll-
one amendment?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I'll move down.
Okay. Should, all right, we'll do both. This is all one, isn't it? It's all on one. It's weird because it's all in the same
Well,
thing. I don't
It's
know
all in
why.
one
So
thing.
Because
I
one's a
am-
policy,
I
and one's
know,
a
but one's a
requirement,
re-
so.
So one of the other things is I'm reaching out to MASC because there's policy and then there's procedures,
right.
which we are going to ask if we are supposed to have procedures in the policy manual.
Sometimes we have a section for procedures in the back. Sometimes
Right, but
they're
see-
required by law, but not, this is probably not.
The problem I have with that is procedures are not policy, but if you vote them as policy, and they don't work for our procedures in the schools, because we have multiple procedures, we then have to go through policy just to update our procedures, and they could, I saw some in there that were completely outdated.
Yeah, we ran
And
into that
if I have to
yesterday.
go
Yeah.
to a policy meeting with that, then
Right.
we're really stuck. And then you could also have a situation where, because it's so outdated, a parent can come back to you and say, but that's part of your policy, so you really shouldn't have them in there. And we're
Well,
trying to.
okay, yeah, but there's some that have to be there by law, like the whole one about like physical restraint, things like that. Or avoiding physical restraint, like that has to be in there.
I'd have to, I mean.
Yeah, I just know it because we worked on it like a lot many years ago, so.
So when we get to that one,
We'll get to that one, but that's like, we already reviewed that enough at this point, and I'm sure there's not anything we have to do about it right now, but, okay. So do we need to vote for this right now?
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
Yep.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the update or the revision of policy IKFA, early graduation, as amended.
moved by Stacy.
Sorry, just question, but not R. We're not doing R
nope.
yet.
No, it's separate.
Seconded by, I'm sorry? Seconded by Catherine. All in favor? Okay. All right. R, Stacy?
Yeah, hold on, I'm letting Susan,
Okay.
make all the edits, et cetera, so that only one person is touching,
Yep.
because too many hands in the pot could cause problems. Okay, thank you. Okay, now the requirements. Okay, what did we change here?
A spelling error?
Yes, yeah, I'm not touching that one.
The word that was crossed out.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so let's go down, so it's just grammatical and change some HPS. All right, let's go down to this last paragraph. The early graduation policy as an option is offered as an alternative for those students who are, okay, this is where we want to
Right.
change this.
Accomplished.
Yes.
Why say anything? Who?
Have
Have effectively
effectively,
exhausted, oh, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, we could just
I like
eliminate it.
Take it out.
Yeah.
I agree.
Who are,
Because that's, everything there is subjective.
have
so
effectively
it's just-
exhausted the academic
You make
opportunities.
it more subjective by leaving
Guess,
it in
I
there.
think that Keith's gonna have to
Go
join
Keith.
policy.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Put them on the floor.
Tag.
Okay, so we're saying, as an alternative for those students who have effectively exhausted the academic opportunities.
Yes.
involved. Okay.
That works? Does that satisfy you, Catherine? Okay.
Excellent.
So now this is, but there's no, we have no place on here to note the date, so I think I just would
We
reference
just
it
would
at
add
the top,
it.
but
Yeah, just, we can reference that something down at the
I'll
bottom.
have, yeah, I'll have.
See, again, that was one of the things like,
Well, it's because it's not a policy.
I
Right,
know.
that's the tricky part, and that's
This is
why,
just this policy.
but once you
that's
put
weird.
it in the manual, it
Could
makes
you
it.
date the one before it?
It is, yeah.
Well, no, but date it where it says, procedure reference, where it says attachment, blah, 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 and then you put dated in there.
Oh, yeah, procedure reference IKFAP, whatever,
And then say
R,
dated that
FR,
date,
and
just so
then
you
just
have
hit
it.
for
Amended.
Keith, all right
Oh, my
tonight.
goodness, he's
Man,
been
you are on a
getting
roll.
tagged in, that's
Thank
all
you.
I'm doing.
Okay, I move to approve IKFA-R as amended.
Second.
This is where it's dated someplace.
All in favor?
I put it
Thank you,
there
sorry.
if you don't wanna-
Now it's like you jumped from. Okay,
Well, I made it for you.
next.
It could be there.
Okay.
School, are we doing schooling?
Okay, so
Homeschooling?
I would like
Ms. Menard was,
Joni
I was gonna say, she was all over this one.
to, because she actually worked through this with
Send you my note.
legal counsel, so I am gonna
I
actually,
think we need to read it all the way through though, right? There's so many changes in it.
You may want to.
Yeah.
okay, I will happily read it for you.
All right.
Okay, so it is, the correct title is homeschooling. Oh, sorry, is it? Yes.
Yes.
Not home education.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're taking out the section of rationale.
And then we didn't need the word policy for that reason, and went right into the policy.
Right, so and this we can wordsmith later, because I know this goes against what we've said, but this was actually the attorney's recommendation, so this is why it looks a little different than what we normally would say. The school committee of the Holliston Public Schools recognizes, authorizes the right of a parent or parents or legal guardians, hereinafter known as parent, to provide their children with a homeschool program as an alternative to public school education. As required by law, the Holliston School Committee has established standards for approved homeschool plans. Approval of a homeschool program is subject to the following requirements. Number one, a parent must submit a homeschool plan to the superintendent or his or her designee, hereinafter will be known as superintendent, for approval on an annual basis. The homeschool plan must be approved prior to removing the student from school and commencement of the homeschool program. The district accepts applications year-round, but ideally, the homeschool plan would be submitted and approved prior to the start of each school year. 2, the homeschool plan must contain the following information in order to meet the minimum standards established by the school committee. A, the proposed curriculum and number of hours of instruction the student will receive in each of the proposed subjects. B, the general qualifications supporting the competency of the parent who will provide the instruction. C, the textbooks, workbooks, and other instructional materials to be used by the student and the lesson plan and teaching manuals to be used by parent. And D, a plan for periodic standardized testing or portfolio evidence of the students. Oh, wait a minute.
Well, you go students modifying the standardized testing of part.
How about a plan for the students' periodic standardized
That might be better.
testing
Right,
and
yeah.
portfolio
Yeah,
evidence.
I agree. For the student.
Thank you, Donna. It helps when you read it out loud. Okay, a plan for the students' periodic standardized testing or portfolio evidence that demonstrates educational progress in the attainment of minimum Massachusetts state standards. 3, the superintendent has the right to approve or reject the homeschool plan. Within 14 days of receipt of the plan, the superintendent will either approve or reject the plan. If the plan is rejected, the superintendent will provide reasons for the rejection and allow the parent the opportunity to revise the proposed plan. If the revised plan is rejected by the superintendent, the parent may appeal the rejection by petitioning the school committee for approval. If the home plan is rejected and the student is not in school, an appropriate referral will be made. 4, the parent must provide a portfolio of work and assessments related to the academic areas outlined in the homeschool plan by the end of the Holliston Public Schools academic year. 5, if a homeschool program is inadequate or assessments show insufficient progress, a conference between the parent and the superintendent will be scheduled to find mutually acceptable ways to correct any deficiency. If deficiencies are not corrected, an appropriate referral will be made. 6, if a student who has been educated at home under an approved homeschool plan wishes to enroll in the Holliston Public Schools, the decisions on course credit and grade placement are to be made by the superintendent on the basis of the home study course content and test assessments to measure the student's academic achievement. 7, a student's homeschool plan may include school-sponsored courses and services. 8, a homeschool student may participate in school-sponsored activities, extracurricular activities, and co-curricula in which the student might be enrolled. And yes, I need an A for reading that between all the colors and all the.
Well done. It should say a homeschool student versus homeschool student.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Because they're homeschooled.
Yeah, that's
Homeschooled
that-
student.
less
School.
awkward.
And just so
You
you
didn't
know,
like
if
my
the
reading?
plan
Not
is
captured.
rejected, what I do is quote what they did not meet in the policy. I literally take the whole line out, right? So,
Which is why on number 3 and 6, you need to put our designee, superintendent or designee.
no, it already.
No, it already
said
set it up way up top.
Yes,
Here,
yes.
henceforth, no.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry, didn't see that.
I thought it was interesting that it has to be submitted
Yes.
to us for approval.
I think we should change it to there, though.
It should be there.
Yeah, let's get away from the his, her. When we
Lucy
can't.
was saying she didn't want us to do
When we
right
can correct it, though.
It's there.
We talked about this yesterday, though,
Yeah,
when
we
we
did
did
correct it
it
on
on
those
those.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's several of them that should be there. I wrote it down too.
Because it says superintendent or designee, and then it also says
parents or
Guardian,
guardian,
and then
right?
it
It
says
says hereafter
hereafter
parent, right?
parent.
Yes, it does both.
On 2B, on the other one, on 2B, you talk about the parent doing the teaching exclusively, and I don't care whether parent or guardian, but it still could be a third party that a parent engages with.
No, it can, but, okay, can you go back up to
Go to 2B.
It's a 2B, the general purpose supporting the competency of the parent.
Competency of the,
Parent, period.
because that's usually who it is, but you're right, we could put it in there, you're right.
I'm just saying that, again,
Right,
because.
but I think the hard part, are we now going to go down the rabbit hole of now ensuring who the vendor is that they're hiring to supplement? Because they are still the homeschool person, but they
It's
might
their
supplement
job,
with the
right.
tutor online. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm saying, but this thing specifically talks to the competency of the parent.
I know.
They have to submit that, though.
Do we now want to have to worry about the
So-
competency of the vendor online? That's, how can we go down that rabbit hole?
I don't know,
It's on the parent to determine that.
Amanda and then Minnie.
Yes.
Just to that point, I think we sort of view it as the parent or guardian is like the principal. And if they're using supplemental, like vendors or tutors or online curriculum, then that still falls under the umbrella because they are the director and the chooser of that.
That's how I would look at it, like if we have a school, what do we have, the PT and the PTA, if we have the physical therapist and then a PTA working under them, the PTA is working under the license of the
supervisor,
So similarly, they would be working under the parent, who is the overarching educator.
Does
Minnie?
that satisfy your concern? No,
I don't see it that way, but that's fine.
Well,
If that's the way, I mean, if
Our
that's what we're
legal
gonna.
counsel interpreted it, so that's why I feel okay about it.
It's a good point, though.
Yeah.
I'm just curious why the guardian is crossed out.
It's up at the top.
It's just so that you're not spending the whole policy writing out
Parent or guardian.
superintendent and his or her designee, parent and or
It
guardian.
says here and
So it
after
says here and
parent.
after.
It's here and after is referred to as parent.
Yep.
So
Oh,
every
I
time you see
see.
It's up at the
me,
top.
Okay, got it.
parent or guardian.
Just like the superintendent.
Got it, designate.
And then we
Got
did
it.
reference the, put the legal references in there as well, that updated that.
I was curious as to why it said that they needed to petition the school committee for approval instead of, because it talks about the superintendent throughout, and then suddenly it says the school committee has to approve their
That's if it's
homeschooling.
rejected.
Correct.
So
Okay.
if they-
So they're
it's an
like-
appeal process.
Okay, it's appeal
Yeah.
process, okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Goes up the food chain.
I'm not eating anything.
Because you guys get the big bucks.
Yeah, right. Exactly, $0. Okay. Minnie, yes.
One last quick question. When we say referral, what does that mean? Like appropriate referral will be made?
What
does
is
that?
it?
Which one?
Oh, it's, I know what you're talking
When
about.
we make referrals.
Number 5, it says an appropriate referral will be made.
Every student is required by law to be in school, either physically in a public school, a private school, or homeschool. And so if they're not, then we're responsible as a public school to report that.
I see. I see.
So
So the referral would be the reporting.
DCF or
Right.
truancy.
Right,
Okay.
truancy
Correct.
officer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's our responsibility to do that. We are mandated to do that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I would entertain a motion to approve policy IHBG, homeschooling, as amended.
Moved by Stacy.
Second.
Moved by Stacy, seconded by Minnie, all in favor? Thank you. All right, and one more?
I think so.
But this is a first reading, is
This
that
is a
correct? Which
first
means
reading, so we'll bring
who
it back.
wants to read the whole thing?
Want me to have a turn? Because Stacy just did.
Yeah, Amanda, why don't you read it?
Can I read it from you?
Oh, absolutely.
I have it printed if I want to read that way.
GBEBD, online fundraising and solicitations, crowdfunding. Holliston Public Schools, HPS, employees shall comply with all of the following provisions relating to online solicitations and the use of crowdfunding services for school-related purposes, as well as all applicable laws, regulations, and district policies. No online fundraising may occur except as provided below. The superintendent or their designee shall have final authority to approve any online fundraising activities by the HPS employees and shall determine and communicate to principals the circumstances under which online fundraising proposals shall require superintendent or school committee approval in accordance with law and school district policy KCD. The principal of each school shall approve all online fundraising activities within their buildings prior to any employee posting any such fundraising solicitation. Any solicitation shall be for educational purposes only. Field trips, supplies, supplemental materials, books, school-sponsored events and activities, etc. The solicitation of personal items, coats, nutritional snacks, etc., shall only be to benefit students directly. To the extent an employee solicits any technology or software, the employee shall secure the prior written approval of the Director of Technology, sorry, I lost my place, or software, Director of Technology or their designee prior to any such solicitation. An employee seeking to display or post a photograph of a student in conjunction with a fundraising solicitation must first secure the written consent of the student's parent or guardian. Employees shall not use a crowdfunding source or set up their appeal in such a way that they are asking for donations directly from people over whom the employee making the request has authority, or with whom the public employee is having official dealings, such as parents or guardians of students in a teacher's classroom. The solicitation can say classroom X needs tissues and crayons, but it shouldn't be directed to parents and guardians who have shared email addresses with the teacher for purposes of communicating about their student. Employees using crowdfunding services shall periodically disclose in writing to the superintendent the names of all individuals whom the employee has directly solicited in any manner, including but not limited to oral, written, or electronic solicitation. The superintendent shall maintain these disclosures as public records available for public review. Employees may only use crowdfunding services that send the items or proceeds solicited by the employee directly to the employee's school or to the school district. Employees must verify under the crowdfunding service terms and conditions that they meet all requirements for such solicitation. Items or proceeds directly sent to employees are considered gifts to the employee and may result in violation of state ethics laws. If an employee's proposal is approved by the crowdfunding service, the employee agrees to use the donated materials solely as stated in the employee's proposal. If a solicitation is not fully funded within the time period required by the crowdfunding service, or if the solicitation cannot be concluded for any reason, every attempt will be made to return donations to the donors. Donations unable to be returned shall only be used as account credits for future solicitations. Unless otherwise approved by the superintendent in writing, all goods and or proceeds solicited and received through any online solicitation shall become the property of the school committee and not of the individual employee who solicited the items or funds. The employee is prohibited from taking any such items or funds to another school or location without the superintendent's written approval. And then we have our legal references. As you can see, do I have to read those numbers?
No, but you can.
Just the note.
Just the note.
Cross references and the source. And then the note. Crowdfunding services are defined as any online service used for the solicitation of goods, services, or money from a large number of people via the internet or other electronic network. Examples include GoFundMe, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, YouCaring, and Donors Choose.
So this policy came down from MASC, so we did not draft this or write this, because quite honestly, it certainly could use a little help.
And I was actually brought it forward because I've run into this in other districts, and when you get into the ethics, people that do this, if they're not disclosing it to the schools, we are now culpable in this process and they could be asking for things that we should be funding in the budget, and we're not giving them the authority to do so. And then, because they're doing it as a school employee, we own that property. So just because they did it individually, but they did it as a school employee, it belongs to the school.
Right.
So we can't have them doing it on their own and then taking it with them, and we need to track it. But quite honestly, it's not something we really want to do because it's very hard to manage.
Oh, it's really bad.
So really, we're trying to discourage it by doing that because we want people to be trying to go through we have the HEF that's doing there's other things there are other grants available.
Well, the next number of years, you talk about somebody thinking of their properties, X number of years ago, it's got to be 17, 18 years ago, a teacher had gotten some video equipment through a grant that they had written. And they left that year and planned on taking it with them. And needless to say, I held the final check till I got it back. Because again, if it's my grant, it's like, no, ours, thank you. So, but that's the type of thing. This is just, you need this type of policy to really establish kind of the rules of engagement here. with these types of services and what it really means.
Yeah, and the other issue we run into is, as a teacher, I want to do this great activity, so I request through crowdfunding or some other solicitation for certain technology. It's never come through our technology. It could be clogging up our server, and now they come to you and say, I need you to work on this for me. It's not working properly.
Right.
We can't be managing devices that we didn't purchase and that we haven't logged in and don't have the appropriate, all of
Yeah,
that,
all of
right?
that, yeah. Okay. Dawn, you had a question?
You would agree, because we're only referencing employees, that this does not apply to student fundraising, correct?
Correct, and that's why the first time I read it, Amanda and I were talking about that, and we questioned that a little bit, and then we realized because it's not employees, it would not, students that are doing their volunteerism and they're doing, raising money for different projects related to service learning and things like that, this would not apply.
Yep,
They'd
and
still have to
we
go
had-
through approval, but.
Nicole was with us yesterday at our meeting, and actually, if you look in the,
That's why
I think
I
it's
highlighted
the section there about school-sponsored events and activities, that is for like the fundraising for prom. Like, that is something that would be the class, we were trying to come up with the right word for it, but.
Well, because the advisor would be actually doing the fundraising. And,
Right.
And it has to go directly back to the kids, so that's why we wanted to add the school-sponsored events and activities, because if they're fundraising for one of the class trips as a result.
But she also wanted to put school
I'm sorry,
sponsored, so then that covers if there was something an organization was doing that's not connected to the school, so, to protect the school committee.
So
District.
So last year, the parents arranged for prom for all the kids.
That was not a school-sponsored
So it
event.
wouldn't be a school
That is, no.
sponsored, so that wouldn't be covered, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a good example.
So at the very end, the last paragraph, it says, it shall become property of the school committee. Shouldn't it be of the Holliston Public Schools? It's not really going to us. Is that what it says in the MASC policy?
That's the
word for
policy.
word?
We didn't do that.
It's
Probably because
everything
of
here
the
is under your care and
Because you,
custody.
All right.
it's, ultimately you approve the budget,
Yeah, but,
so that's why it's
Okay.
listed
Yeah,
that way.
it's, again, care and custody.
no, I know that. I just, it just property,
just
I just feel like usually it's
Yeah.
the property of the Holliston Public
Body on
Schools, not the
chairs.
school committee.
I mean, I don't know that'd be problematic, but.
I don't think it matters.
We're not voting it tonight anyway, so
think
I
it
just
doesn't matter.
would like to check to see whether or not,
Let's look into it.
yeah.
Okay.
Two questions for when the committee gets together again. I wonder if you want to include in the very last line, examples include but are not limited to, or something like that, just because even though it says examples, people will think that, oh, yeah, but I found this other one. So it's just, it kind of gives you that, permanence to
Covers.
Let me add that now.
Covers, yeah.
Included, but not limited to.
And then in the second paragraph, I'm honestly confused, I'm not being a jerk here, I'm honestly confused on who actually approves things. Because you have the superintendent, and then it's the principal, then it's this, I think,
let's talk through that,
I think the workflow, or the approval flow, it's not workflow, the approval flow just needs to be a straighter line.
Yeah.
It's getting kind of matrix-like for me, anyway.
So we're gonna have another policy meeting, we could bring it back to the subcommittee to, and have you come and.
I don't have to come.
I think, yeah,
I
we'd
think
love
you
you.
do.
I think I have to come, I'm just saying.
When you share,
right?
sharing is caring, Keith.
No,
I'm delegating you since you brought it up.
I'm busy that day, I'm
All
sorry.
right, so we'll consider this our first reading, so we have to have at least one more reading until we can approve it, so. All right, and is that it, Mrs. Raffi?
We did work on, we have two more that we worked on that we'll be bringing forward on April 20th, just because they weren't already on the agenda. We're moving along.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'm going to skip ahead to new business, because I don't want to leave out that I want to hear about the strategic plan, the SOI, and the newsletter we'll do after, but I want to just skip ahead if you don't mind. Strategic plan, Amanda and Minnie, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you guys have been doing, and we were supposed to do this last time, and we just didn't have time, so
So,
take it away.
as everybody knows, the strategic plan has been meeting all year, and the committee consists of teachers, Minnie and I, the administrating team, all the principals, some parents, some teachers, some students, all different stakeholders. The process of developing the strategic plan concluded yesterday. So we have it. We're going to do a more detailed presentation at our May 5th meeting, as you may know. But what you'll see in that presentation, what the components are some more sort of general things like a mission statement, a system of core values and a vision statement, and also a set of 4 like arches or headings or topics of strategic initiatives that are going to be put into place over the next 5 years in order to help meet the core values that we've done. And those 4 arches, as we call them, are communication practices is number 1, which includes everything from updating the school's website to onboarding, creating an onboarding process for new families to Holliston Public Schools, to looking at better means of school-to-school communication, as well as, school-to-student, things like that. The second is social and emotional well-being. That is going to include the equity audit that we talked about before tonight, as well as many other things, including like professional development to support staff in meeting social emotional needs, examining the current bullying program, and several other things there. The third is teaching and learning. So things like examining curriculum and course offerings to make sure it's reflecting social and cultural diversity, examining the efficacy of the scheduling and programs. So this would be everything from examining French and Montessori, daily schedules like the block schedule at the high school, providing more personalized learning opportunities for kids. Everything that would fall under the umbrella of curriculum is in teaching and learning. And then the last one is talent and resources, which refers to both the people that make up the schools and also the physical things. So researching ways to recruit and retain talented staff and more diverse staff, looking at our current work on the capital plan for facilities, what we're doing now, and then the hopes we have down the road. So lots of different things that pretty much covered all areas and came from this survey that we analyzed throughout the year.
And lots of other data.
And lots of, well, that survey, the lots and lots of data sources.
Lots of thinking,
Did you find that there was a great deal of consensus around, or was there,
There was a lot of consensus. Like, there was a lot of debate and discussion, but it was more like our major goals were aligned, and the talk was all around, like, how do we get to those goals?
In the vision and the mission statement, we spent a lot of time in the theory of action, so that you'll see that come out when we present.
There's a lot of cohesiveness, I would say.
There were a lot of rich discussions and rigorous discussions.
And
debate was good.
And my plan is to, we've been fixing the draft from yesterday, we'll go back to the TLA group. They're going to put it together for us for May 5th. And I'll be sending it out so that some of the group are going to present.
Oh, okay.
And I'm hoping to get one of our students to present with us, one of our parents potentially, school committee reps, and not get too large, but, representation from the group, but one of our, hopefully the teachers that was on the committee.
Okay. And then how do we plan to distribute it once?
It'll be sent out. We can send it out in draft form and put it on the website, but then the final beautiful version that's going to be very fancy is a next step that won't be probably done till the end of the year, I think.
Okay.
So then we'll update it at that point, but we can put the draft out. Once they clean up the draft for me, then we'll put that on.
Okay, Lisa?
Yeah, just one question. Did you guys talk about, like, various wellness issues beyond social emotional? Because when I used to, the Wellness Council sort of fell apart before, at the pandemic, and I didn't have the bandwidth to start it up again. But, we used to talk so much about getting kids outside more, integrating physical activity into the day, and, things about, it was mostly around, there was a social emotional part, which I know you guys covered, but there was also a lot around physical activity and nutrition and things like stress relief, which probably still falls under social emotional, like meditation and things like that. Did you guys cover those sorts of topics?
Stress relief, yeah. Just to be clear, the things I outlined were just examples, so that wasn't really comprehensive. I don't think we really talked much about nutrition.
That would be covered in the wellness standards. There's Massachusetts state standards that we need to follow that go around nutrition. So we're required to teach those standards.
And none of that specifically came up anywhere in our
Right.
data, so that's, we tried, it really was driven by the data and the information that people felt that we should be focusing on between the community representation and so forth. So that was not a topic that came up through all of this.
Huh. I'm surprised because there was a lot of energy around getting kids more physical activity throughout the day and getting kids outside, getting them, sunshine, that sort of thing. We talked a lot about, working with the farms in town.
There was, but I wonder if COVID, I wonder if COVID has burned some people out, and I think focused on more of the social and emotional well-being and diversity. I think those have been the two. I hear, Lisa, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is I think people could only handle so much, so many topics.
I know. I just think
come up at all, actually. You're very right.
If we're talking about a 5-year plan, though, I think it's so. Those things, physical activity and getting outside, are so tightly tied to social emotional wellness. That was, a lot of what, and I feel bad bringing this up now since, I have not really been involved in the strategic planning process. I've been, mostly thinking about the budget. But I just think that, if there's still time to think about that at all, I feel like.
The only thing I can caution here is that we cannot reintroduce a topic. We really went through, we had 6 focus groups of parents, educators, community members, town administrator,
and it came from the
school
survey.
committee, all of you. That never came up in any of that. So to introduce something that was never part of any data. When we do our equity audit and we have under the umbrella of safe and supportive schools, we will be looking into wellness. It's just that it's not explicitly written in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the Wellness Council can't still exist, Lisa, but I agree with you. I think it just sort of fell off the map with
It can be
COVID.
certainly something that
in the
is.
surveys either, right?
Yeah, it did
not come up in our
actually,
surveys.
that word never came up
Correct.
in any, and this was pretty comprehensive, like this room was full.
I do. I think people's focus
Just
changed
shifted.
a little bit and shifted, and maybe only focused on some of the things that were more top of mind this year.
Or just more broad,
Yeah.
like just a bunch of broader.
Broader, I think it was much broader.
To me, that seems really
Okay.
broad.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say that sometimes the things that come up from when you sort of crowdsource them are when the one put into practice from an implementation standpoint, practitioners take those things and implement them in the best way possible, right? So I don't know that necessarily people meant to exclude wellness, but that we can still do that on the practitioner side, right? So getting outside is hugely important to social emotional well-being. Sunshine is very important to that. Nutrition is hugely important to that. So just because it didn't come up doesn't mean we can't talk about it.
Yeah,
I
think it was.
We don't talk about it
from
a more addressed because we did expand recess and we have labs for lunch and there's a lot of these initiatives that we
There's
started.
no labs for lunch right now.
Okay, but we had been doing labs for lunch.
The initiatives are the 5-year roadmap.
Right.
It doesn't preclude the school committee from going back and saying we want to revisit the wellness policy, which would then potentially reopen things. And we are working on the wellness curriculum.
No, but I just mean from the same way that we're not going to have a line item for social emotional, it's going to be integrated.
Right.
We can integrate the wellness piece, and I think it already is. I don't think it was not something we're going to do, and it's not a creative point. If you're talking about someone's social emotional well-being, fresh air is part of that. Sunshine is part of that. So as long as we keep it as part of the discussion and part of what does the implementation look like, then I do think that this all happened during a pandemic. So I think a lot of people are still kind of in panic mode of there's a lot of things that we need to be concerned about in terms of mental health, but social and emotional learning is not just about crisis management and how do you handle stress. It's about how do you be proactive about your health and how do you, eat better so you're not going through sugar crashes and thinking that you're actually, having low energy and depression when actually maybe it was too much sugar at lunch. Those are just examples. But there's also the ways that you structure the day, having a recess after lunch is actually really important because of the way that your body uses glucose in your blood. You need to move after you eat. So those are things that we can consider in the implementation without having without
Maybe
having.
you should resurrect the wellness council.
Oh, look who's been nominated.
We are, technically, we're supposed to have a wellness.
We are,
council.
but
Every
it's not,
district
it's
is.
not a school committee.
It's not a school
Subcommittee,
committee,
it is a
and I'm not
council.
I did it, and I'm done,
know, me
and
too.
I don't have any more bandwidth for that, but I hope, like, I'd love to see us, I don't know, I hope the community, someone, Catherine, will resurrect.
As I'm over here with all my bag of
You
tissues.
see a liaison
On the
too.
picture of
You don't have to
wellness.
run it. So, all right. So, okay, so we can, thank you for that update, man. I appreciate it. That just gave me some highlights that I haven't really had much information on. Okay, so we're going to move on to the SOI discussion and vote. Dr. Kaska.
So last year I presented the updated SOI statement of interest related to the hope to build a new high school. I have not substantially changed the presentation that I'm presenting tonight from last year, and it's by far and large, it goes back to the original presentation from Brad Jackson. This is the fourth time that we're looking to move forward this SOI to MSBA. So I'd like to go through some of it quickly, and if you've had time to look at it, because I did want to highlight the slides that changed, which are slides 11 and 12. So if anyone has, if you don't have any objection, I was going to move right to the
I think
changes.
we should just
talk about.
hit to the change. We should all be
The
well
rest you
versed in
can
this.
read if you're not
Yeah.
familiar with it.
Most of us have sat through this a few
A number of times, yeah. This is time number 5. Okay.
So one of the things that Keith and I have talked about this year is really, in addition to the outdated, inflexible science labs, the classroom spaces are inefficient. The lack of the black box theater is limiting not only productions for theater, but also speaking events. We can't bring people in on a smaller level if they don't have the right venue for that. So not having that creates limitations to what we can offer for students as well. Clearly, you've seen the gridlock when we're trying to exit the campus or getting onto the campus, and it impacts all the way downtown, sometimes this way, but more downtown. I have myself mistakenly tried to get to another building during that time and gotten myself stuck in there, and it's like, you cannot get out. It's crazy, so there's just no getting around it. The collaboration spaces for student, I mean, it's all about innovative learner, right? We don't have those spaces available. A lot of the buildings, and I've been in districts where I had new building projects, and a lot of times what they do is have these little workspaces in between the two classrooms, and you can send 5, 6, a group of students to have a private space to work on where the teacher can still see them. We have none of that. If you look at the second floor, actually, on the interior classrooms, we have 12 interior classrooms that have no windows or air conditioning. There's nothing we can do about that. You cannot change that in this day and age. The storage with no meeting spaces for students and teachers, physical education, athletic, while we have a nice field house, it's still insufficient to meet the needs of today. But the two I wanted to highlight are the ones that are bolded there. One of the things that we're seeing trend up right now, and you saw this last year, if you remember last August, we had to reach out to you, and I think we sent a communication to parents. We had to close the library, this lovely library, for 2+ weeks, the first couple weeks of school, because we found out because of the humidity in the building, because there's no air coming in and filtering all summer long. We don't have air conditioning going. We don't have air conditioning here. We sometimes have air coming in, but it's not air conditioning. So the humidity got in, and we ended up having mold in the rugs, mold in some of the rooms here, mold behind the auditorium, correct?
Inside there, yep.
In the room.
Yep.
And we had to shut down those areas down until they could abate it. We were fortunate that it was limited to that, because that could also lead to the closing of school. And that's what you're hearing more and more. Between the flooding that we're hearing, we've had significant climate changes throughout the country. But in our area, it's that humidity level and that climbing temperatures that we're not seeing. We're seeing them earlier in June, and we have nothing to do about it. If you go to that second floor of the building, again, the heat index on that second floor is formidable. And I worry, sometimes we have health needs of students that literally cannot be in those rooms. We've had to relocate classes. Last year, as you know, we did a lot more of outside learning, and that was a way to mitigate some of that, but it's sometimes too hot out there as well to deal with that, and we have no place to send them. So I really think that really needs to be a huge focus of this application, because it's something realistic. People don't always understand what innovative learning means, but you do understand that if students are fainting in our buildings, or we have to shut down the building for 2 to 3 weeks, and time on learning is impacted, that's a significant concern. So if you go to the next slide. Keith put together this slide, so why don't you talk to this, Keith?
Basically, what the slide shows is I just picked 4 months, the last 2 months of the school year and the first 2 months of the school year, because obviously it's the warmest. And so what you're looking at basically from 2015, I went further back and I got a little carried away. But if you look at it, most of the months are within a reasonable range. And what I mean by that is not necessarily the temperature, but the range is fairly consistent over time. You look at the top bar there, the green bar, which is August. You're seeing, 82, 83 to 80 to 85, but it's staying in that range. The purple one, which is September, again, that's about 77, bouncing around that 75 mark, back up to 77, but again, smaller range. May had a big dip, but May's big dip was actually getting cooler, so hey, good for us. Except when you're trying to get the baseball fields ready from an earlier discussion. But the one that's alarming and that we lived last year, if you look at that June one, which is that kind of that reddish brownish one, which, in 2015 was like 72, and then it went up and it was like staying between 75 and 80 up until last year, where again, we're talking the average temperature for June was 7 degrees higher than maybe where it normally has been kind of residing. And as Susan said, the problem with the things we've changed now, procedure changing, is this April, as opposed to doing some of our other normal work from school vacation week. We're going to be shampooing the carpets in here in April, not doing it in the summer like we normally do. We're not going to be adding moisture into the space at the time we have no way of getting rid of it.
Right.
So that, again, that was a recommendation from the contractor who had to come do work with us. So,
But it's not foolproof.
but it's not. But
No,
that's one step in this process. The other step is we're going to leave the ventilation on all summer, so that's higher costs of electricity and wears our motors out faster, et cetera, those sorts of things. But again, as another avenue to the challenges that we have in this school to address climate change with a newer building, or at least a completely renovated building, say, where you had ventilation that involved dehumidification, which is usually air conditioning, that is something that's going to be needed going forward as the climate change continues to accelerate. The thing Susan was talking about, I gave her an article this week or last week on the Cresskill, New Jersey schools, who had a relatively new high school, and the floods that came in this past year, and they lost everything, and they were closed for a significant period of time. And Cresskill, New Jersey is an affluent community, smaller than ours. I know it's kind of near where I grew up. But again, it's one of those things that, again, these climate changes, now we're not going to have floods in Holliston, we're a little far away from water. But that being said, the climate change does impact us, and it is significant here. And so, again, and it wasn't just us. When the contractor came here, he said, yeah, I'm working in 32 different school districts in this area with mold remediation. So we were not unique in any way, shape, or form, but if we can get ahead of the curve on this one, let's do it.
And as you know, with all the calendar holidays that we've added, we could go as late as June 30th because of that.
So the other thing that begs the question, though, is that we do have a very high water table. Is that just getting higher? Or does it come to a point, I'm just wondering, does it make a point to us to say, we're not going to want to build a new project on this space because of the limitations of it? Do you think that might come up?
I think that would be part of the study, right?
I don't know. In the springtime, you don't put a shovel in the ground in the back, because the hole will fill up.
That's my point, though. Should we be saying things to?
That's something that would be, when they do a feasibility study,
Right.
there is
So
a
that's
site.
something that they would say is
There is
the
a site
site.
study.
Okay.
There is a site study.
Okay.
Now, I would guess, again, knowing what they told us, that if we built a new building, if that was the recommendation,
Yeah.
it'd be going to where the parking lot is.
Right.
And attaching itself to the field house, because they don't build field houses, and attached to the auditoriums, because we won't get the same auditorium. So that area where the students currently leave to head to the parking lot would become a courtyard. So it kind of fits in nicely. It's a little bit further away as well from the wetlands that we're having. So, but I don't disagree. If the water table is getting higher, from the little brooks back there, it's possible that this site may be unsuitable. It's clearly going to be unsuitable. It's clearly going to be unsuitable for a wastewater treatment facility, because there'll be no place to take the gray water out.
And honestly, the only reason why I was thinking about it is because when we went to the select board meeting on Monday, they were talking about a DPW sites, and they were showing the different wetlands and things like that. And I thought to myself, oh wow, because we know our table's pretty high here and we have issues,
Yeah, this isn't a declared wetlands, otherwise we would.
Right, but
because we got a waiver
yes.
from the DEP to allow us to keep our existing septic system back in 98, I think it was, or 99. So again, do I think they'd give us another waiver? No. But if we were wetlands, that waiver wouldn't mean anything either. So they would declare our.
Does tidal pools, like vernal pools count? It might.
You know, I don't, all I can speak, my husband owns a property that abuts conservation land. He has conservation land on his, so he had to go through a tremendous amount of conservation meetings and so forth. But he ultimately was able to build 7 units on his property for his business. He had to follow certain guidelines. I mean, you get into the irrigation and
retention ponds and stuff like
yeah,
that.
he had to dig and do this,
Yeah.
and, and then we planted thousands of plants that are now just there. So I mean, that all factors in, and that's a whole. That would be part of the study. He had to have an engineer come in. We would have to do all of that. So
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
no, but that's
Derail,
just a
just a sidebar.
small example. This is
considering.
obviously on a big scale, but
Okay.
but I do think that should be a strong focus moving forward of how can we get ourselves closer to the top of the list.
Right.
Oh, and there is one other slide I did change. The one on the different ones
Later?
that got approved.
Earlier.
If you go down further.
Catherine, do you have a question?
I do.
Right,
For those
back
of
up.
us that are new here,
This one?
do we have a
Back up
sense
one.
as to why we weren't at the top of the list last time?
So these are the 4
she's
buildings
gonna
that
go over that right
received.
now, sort of.
So our next step would be to get approved for a feasibility study. So MSBA gets all these projects, and it was delayed last year because of, usually, well, this year we have to be in by April 29th. Last year, we didn't have to submit till the end of
June, I
June,
think, yeah.
and then it was delayed, and they didn't let us know anything until after December 15th. So these are the 4 projects that got approved. I did talk to Carol Kavanaugh yesterday when I was at a meeting with her and asked her, how long did it take you and how did you get to the top of the list? Now, one of the things that Keith and I have talked about too is some years they focus on a huge project that's a high school that might be a multi-regional high school that's millions of dollars, and it's a huge project. When they fund that, that might be the only one that year. So this year they're funding the feasibility study for 3 elementaries and a middle school. I don't know all the details, but they're probably smaller, and they could do 4, and that would be their limit. So they break up the pool the way they feel like in different years. But for Hopkinton, they are going back to neighborhood schools. They're actually, and there's an enrollment issue. So they actually had buildings, I think she told me pre-K 1, 2, 3, multiple transitions because of the enrollment that's been blossoming. So what they're trying to do is go back to the neighborhood schools that would be pre-K 5 or pre-K 4, I forget exactly how it's configured, which means they need that elementary school back. So that's the reasoning behind it. They're busting at the seams, which pushes them higher to the list. We
Right.
don't
It's
have the
enrollment.
enrollment.
Yeah.
There was, I checked the MSBA site, and there was 118 SOIs submitted last year. So
Yeah.
4 were selected.
Right,
118.
for the core program, but there's others that were in the accelerated repair and things like that.
And again, we don't have an enrollment problem or an enrollment issue here, which is
That can
like
move you up
number
higher, right.
1, because they know that if you don't
Right.
have space, you can't educate children. So, you know, it's
Or it's a danger, it's
Right.
falling down, you know, I mean,
Right.
there's other
Yeah.
an old
criteria.
building or something.
Right.
Yep, that's
But it's,
not even close.
we don't have it right now.
Yeah,
That's
it's remediated, I know.
Keith, and Susan, the slide says over a dozen interior rooms without windows. So
Yeah.
obviously, it's a different type of ventilation. But out of how many classrooms roughly do we have? I mean, it can't be more than 50 or 60.
80 or 70.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a lot.
So over a dozen is a significant portion of windows without.
Oh, no, and again, when they,
Classrooms without windows.
when we did the walkthrough with them 4 years ago, I think it was, or 3 years ago, they were surprised. Again, we talked, it was a walk and talk, and they were surprised at the number of rooms that, again, had no windows. And it was especially telling for them because, you know, we walked through, it's the science wing right behind us. And, you know, we walked through the workspace and they said, oh, this is a great space, except no windows. And both for additional ventilation, and this is before COVID, additional ventilation, or just sunlight coming in or whatever it is, you know, again, you have rooms that have no natural light and no, you know, wind. I mean, and again, you are right. If you look out over the roof, or if you look from like Google Earth, you'll see, you know, a series of ventilation hoods that almost no school has because you don't need them. You can use a unit ventilator. Well, unit ventilators don't work in an inside classroom. So it's
Yeah.
you know, again, it's different.
And you pointed out too about the fact that of the rooms that have windows that are getting the heat off of the black roof. So even though they have some windows, the heat's.
Some of the English rooms in this wing overlook the science wing. And so they, you know, again, when the sun's hitting that, those rooms get toasty and not good toasty.
So, John John Cronin asked a question Monday night about, he said, you hear that it typically takes, anywhere from 5 to 10 years or 7 to 10 years to be asked to partner with the MSBA. And so he, wanted to know if that was still the case. But the question actually prompted me to think about this a little bit, and I asked Cynthia the other day, at what point do we determine that maybe we have to go at this alone? So for example, if we've started, and I'm not asking this to change the vote or anything, what I'm saying is, if it really is 5 to 10 years, okay, so we hit year 10, and we still
Making no progress.
At what point do we make that decision to say, we got to go at this alone, or we need to do something else? Because
But going that alone is like leaving 50%.
I understand
on the
that,
table.
but at the same time, I don't want to hear there's a high school project coming, and so we'll update the science lab. Or, at what point?
Well, I think that's what happens. I mean, if the roof fails, if we have major problems and we're out of compliance, if we can't get approved by NEAS because of the facility, there's so many things that could factor into that. We don't have those things happening. That would be the time we'd have to make this difficult decision.
As we know, we've taken good care of the assets that we were given when this building reopened in 2001. So we've taken good care of it. It's served its purpose. The challenge that we have is when it's really holding us back academically.
Right.
And how much weight is MSBA, putting as our major factor. It's the factor that this building is holding us back. And so, you are right, Stacy. At some level, when are we willing to say we're tired of being held back? I agree with Cynthia. 50% is a big number.
Absolutely.
$100 million project. It's a lot of money to walk away from. That being said, at some point,
We're not well.
it's a tough call.
We are in the process of a strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
I just think we need to have this in the back of our head, because we need to answer to the taxpayers, the parents at some point, you keep telling me that you're going for this high school, yet pick an issue, but my kid is suffering because you're not.
I would say we're not there yet. I'd say the next couple of years, you see no progress, then we might have to have another conversation. But
we're adapting and adjusting to things all the time. We're reusing classrooms. We're being creative with furniture. We're creating more outdoor spaces. We're doing all the good things we can with, again, this property or this building.
Right. I think we need to promote that, because I think the public may not see that, and so it was very, John's question really prompted me to think at what point do we say?
Right.
It's a tough argument, though, in all honesty, because people are going to have a belief, and we can talk about the facts and the matter, but they still have a belief that it's either not enough or it's not this or not that, and again.
And then it's going to be challenging enough, even if we get through this process, to get the town to fund the percentage that we are trying to get, right?
The answer is when the community wants to fund
Go all
an
in,
extra
right.
$30 or $50 million into a project that's already costly. And I just don't think you're going to get that kind of support.
You'd
We
be
might
looking
get
at a
that
building in
support if
disrepair, falling down, crumbling
if you
before
partner
can
with
get
the
there.
state and they see a significant savings in order to acquire this. But to your point, we are not Wellesley or Newton.
I understand that. I'm saying, I know that. It's the public that doesn't, and so I
still think we're within that framework, though. If Brad was saying it's going to take 10 years, this is our 4th submission. So we're still within that window. Even if we don't get, we're hoping that we get into the process this next time, but.
Ideally, that 10-year window should be that you've started the project and you're well into it.
That's not how I remember it.
Well, I remember it being
should be the full project.
I remember it being the conventional wisdom when we started this was it'll be 3 or 4 times before you get accepted by MS. So this should be our year.
2 years now have been COVID years, so I think there's other things that really it bumps it off, I think, a little bit.
And it all depends on who's submitting
it
that
does.
year, too. So we might have been really close last year. We won't know that. But new cases come in this year that pull ahead of us, even though we were really close last year.
And then we may be older than some other buildings, and we just, we're just going to keep trying.
It's a bit subjective.
So if there's no other questions, there is specific language, I think. That's what I was sorry. I was looking that up, but did you have it? Because I didn't have it in my.
Oh, it's in the slide.
There's specific language that we need to use when we vote.
Back up. school committee.
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Sure, lock me out.
My computer.
That does work.
Access denied.
Denied.
Okay, I will.
Maybe we
pull
should
it
have put that in the slide. I was like going, I think there's language I have to say specifically, but,
I'll get it up for you in a second.
oh wait.
There you
Give me
go.
action and you-
Here it is.
Okay. you can read
Okay. I have to read the whole thing?
that. Yes.
So,
Okay. Bear with me, everybody.
absolutely.
Resolved. Having convened in an open meeting on April 7th, 2022, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the town of Holliston, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, have voted to authorize the superintendent of schools to submit the Massachusetts Building Authority the statement of interest form dated, and I'm going to say it's going to be what? It is the old one. It'll be April 29th, 2022, for the Holliston High School located at 370 Hollis Street, Holliston, Mass. 01746, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority area number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. And priority area number 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of program consistent with state and approved local requirements.
Hold on one second.
What's the matter?
Do we want to? No, you don't list all of them, but we may want to say, building jeopardizing student health, poor health, and learning environment based on the heat thing.
But that's not in there.
It's not in here.
We don't have to, that's in the application, I would list that.
Right, but you list out which items.
You're
which
doing
items
priority
and
areas.
Yeah,
What's that priority area?
That's priority area 1,
Priority area 1.
which is building jeopardizing student health, poor health, and learning environment.
Okay.
So that's based on our heat index stuff.
Okay, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Holliston to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Do I have a motion to
Moved by Stacy
Thank
to
you.
approve the
SOI languages?
SOI language and.
Second.
Okay, second by Mindy. Do we have to do a
I was
roll
going
call
to say, do
vote
we
for
have
this?
to give you permission, Susan, to submit it?
They don't do
To
it.
give permission for Susan to submit,
Yeah.
Dr.
Doesn't say
Cussa
that.
to submit this.
Doesn't explicitly state
Add
that.
that to
Okay.
my motion, okay?
Okay, let's just roll call vote anyway, just because I don't want it to be an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call vote. I'm going to start all the way at the end. Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta?
Yes.
Ms. Bigelow?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Stepnick, yes, that is a unanimous vote. Thank you so much.
When does it go before the select board? Because we'll need their vote as well.
Yeah,
The
so
25th.
25th. The 25th? I think?
Yes.
Okay. She was saying, trying to decide whether to be the 19th and the 25th.
They told me the 25th, I thought, so,
Yes.
because it was getting close, I had
Okay.
to submit by the 29th,
She
which is
just,
why
she
they
just
want
asked
us.
me the other day. So I
Oh,
just didn't
okay.
know whether there was a, I told her it
Travis
didn't
told me
matter
the
to me
25th,
one way or the other, so.
Well, if they do it
If she
sooner,
updates it
better.
sooner, then we'll do it sooner. So, but
I'll
that
send them
does
the
need to go.
updated plan that I
Yep.
did tonight.
Okay. I sent them your earlier PDF, but not this one that you just did. Okay. Let me go back to, we'll go back to the newsletter. I didn't even look at it. Communications from the subcommittees, and then we'll move on. Policy, do you guys have a meeting date?
Not confirmed
Okay.
yet.
Budget?
We just had a meeting, Keith and Susan, the administration, everybody answered a bunch of questions from FinCom. We haven't scheduled our next meeting. That's it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. And then superintendent's evaluation.
So everyone should have received evidence from Dr. Kuska, and so now the clock is ticking. You all have a copy of the rubric, and if you can fill that out and submit it to me.
What date are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking for that date, sorry. I forgot what date it was.
Do we want to
I
do
feel
that?
like April, I feel like it was April 22nd-ish.
But are we doing this on April 28th, or are we doing this May 5th? The review?
No, we're doing it in May, but
Oh, but you
the
wanted it
subcommittee
beforehand.
has to meet and
Okay.
combine all the data.
Because I'd like you to be able to include the strategic plan after May 5th as evidence towards the,
Okay.
and then also,
So what's when school
So you-
vacation is over, when?
Would you
April?
like the evaluation to occur after?
After May
we have
5th.
the strategic plan?
Yeah.
because that's a
Has
huge piece of the work,
evidence
and
of
Right.
and then I'll also be able to probably share with you where we are with the curriculum proposal that I'm putting together that I discussed.
Can't submit before May 5th, but we also need to get this done before May 24th.
Yep.
Well, you can start, here's the thing, we can all start working on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't
I
need
could
to
just
be
add those
complete.
additions,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be complete, but you should have a majority done by the end of April so that you can see the presentation on the 5th and then that weekend. It would be great if you could get it to us, because we'll still have to meet and combine it all.
And what
Okay.
our May
Wait, so
meeting-
what's the date?
1st of May.
No.
April
So
30th.
we need to consider the strategic plan initiatives as part of our evidence. However, everything else, you could start to prepare in advance of that, but you'll hear about that on May 5th. So would it be fair to say, if May 5th is a Thursday, that by Monday, May 9th, you could provide your completed submissions?
Yeah.
And then do we have a meeting on May 19th?
We have a meeting on May 5th and May 19th. Yes.
Okay. That
When
gives
is
about
the
10
election?
days to be.
The 24th.
Ask me about the specific document. Yes, I'll resend the rubric.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just have to.
We'll move to the superintendent's update. Dr. Kuska? Did you have anything more to update us on?
Two quick things. World language, that I know there was some confusion about some information that went out because we have an agreement to explore collaboration with, I can't remember the name of the school, I don't have it in front of me because my computer just shut down, but we have a collaboration with a place in France, and we're looking to do an exchange program again next year, which would be wonderful, and I completely support that. But it's informational right now, and it's to gain interest and see how many families are interested in joining. That's not how it was proposed inadvertently, which I did discuss with Joni and Nicole Bottomley. There was a little confusion around it. So we are going to have the World Languages Department leader come to the next meeting and present this to you and go through the process. So, and I did ask them to send out an explanation that was really the informational piece, because it looks like it's a done deal, and it certainly wasn't. I don't foresee any problems with it, but that being said, it is the process.
It does have to be approved by the school committee.
So that should have gone out as just information. We're hoping to put together this, but, so I will get that to you as soon as we have it, and we'll have him come and answer any questions for you. And then I did want to just, tomorrow I'll be sending out the COVID updates, and we did have 31 positive cases this week. 20 of them are at Miller. I also have the update from Chief Cassidy. We are back in the yellow as a community. This is the new strand. It's considered to be more transmittable, but also not dangerous like some of the past. So I'll have that in my communication tomorrow, but I know people will be getting anxious when they see those numbers, and it just happened very fast. The 20 at Miller, we believe, may have been attributed to an outside event, but it is what it is, but we are where we are still with COVID.
Did you see clusters within classrooms at Miller?
I'm not hearing about clusters in classroom. It appears to have been based on, well, let me say it, small clusters I did hear about, like a few in a classroom, but not like a large cluster out of that 20.
Okay. And were any of those identified through the pool testing program at Miller?
Yes, I just don't know the numbers of how many, but I would think a lot of them probably were, because that's really a huge thing right now. And we've had the home testing going for quite a while as well.
And the home testing program is going to continue, right, with the rapids
Yes,
being sent home at the...
In fact, they just asked us if we wanted to order extra. Yeah, I'm not really sure why or how, but we may want to just get ahead of the curve in case they...
maybe.
We're swimming in them.
I know, we have a lot, so it's,
They do expire in July.
that might be why they want us to order extra.
Is there, Is it okay just to throw them out? Like, is there supposed to be a way we're supposed to dispose of them come
That's a
July?
good question. We haven't had to,
Is it flammable?
it's got
No,
a
I'm
little,
just-
it's
I
got a
mean-
chemical in it, so.
Recycle what you can, right? Pop
But
it
it's
out.
got
Well,
a
there's a
chemical in it,
chemical, so
so
I,
biodegradable.
Maybe bring it all to the police station, you bring your
biohazard.
expired drugs to the police station, maybe just
We
bring
will
it.
look into that before we get to that.
Oh,
point.
Chief Cassidy's gonna love that.
Please.
Or, I'm sorry, Chief Stone's gonna love
It's
that.
got the droplets in it, that's the chemical, yeah.
I mean, the box.
Yeah, the reagent.
maybe we
Reagent.
Yeah, I
thank you,
know, like,
reagent.
and there's other plastic components.
maybe we can ask Chief what.
Is there a way to include in the communication when you talk about the 31 positive cases this week, an additional link for people to sign up for the take-home rapids? Because it really is one way to stop it.
Yeah, and I've actually had that in, last week was the first time. I don't think I had for a while because nobody else was signing up, but I am going to put a reminder that they should be looking back into the pool testing and/or home testing.
Thank you.
Okay. That's that.
I won't take any more time, but I had some lovely slides from Rams that they've been doing some wonderful things that they wanted to share, but it's more of a presentation and it's a little bit long, so I'll
Can we
save
share it
that the
time? Or
next
send
time.
it, yeah.
Is it the carnival?
Just different things that they've been doing there. They're trying to get back to normal, right? And it was
That's
just, they've been doing, made a lot of efforts, so I wanted to share that at some point.
Okay. All right, I think we're down at newsletter now.
If everybody hasn't had a chance to read it, it's
I have
lengthy.
not
Do we
looked at
want
it.
to pause for 5 minutes and read it? I know it's late, but we'll probably move through this quicker if we actually get a chance to read it before.
Probably right.
Or is that?
Yeah, I like that idea.
I think
rather than
it's
going
like
through it
2 full
together.
pages, single space. I think we just need to read it
Okay.
before we.
Do we want to, we're not really recessing if we're just reading it, are we? All right, we're just going to read
Moment
it.
of silence.
Silent reading, everybody. Okay.
Cheer.
Did you just send it to us, Dawn?
No, it went,
I
what,
shared it.
5 or 6 o'clock?
Well, I wasn't looking at it.
Want me to reshare with you, Cindy, at the same time?
Lisa, can we can only have one person in there actually
I can-
typing and
yeah,
changing?
I can
All right.
type.
Can you just add in the part about what Susan just added into the application about the student health and
Oh, yeah,
Environment,
priority
'cause
number
that's-
1, yeah.
Go into the drive.
We should add that.
Send it to people. I didn't know what you meant by share.
Do you have the language
Yeah,
for
I
the
don't have
priority
it in the
area
document.
number 1, Keith, that you
I
could
need
send to,
all the priorities.
I
Someone
sent
else
it to
put it in the
Susan.
drive.
oh,
It should be in the drive.
well, she can't, now her thing's dead.
Put it in the drive.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll put it into that,
Created it. I
I'll
did
put
not
it into
put
the
it in
form for you.
No, she wanted to, did you want to add that? No, you're not
Just
adding
read
it.
it as it
It's fine.
is and tell me, I mean, do you really want to get into the meats of what the specific 3 priorities are?
Who's typing?
Want me to send it to you? Who do you want me to send it to?
Send it to me, Keith, and then
Thank
we'll
you. I don't know if we
talk
need to
about
put
it
it in
as a
there.
group.
sorry. Seeking a grant of 31 to 50. Didn't they estimate that we were going to get over 50%?
No.
2022?
This
Yeah,
was,
but you're going to be
That was on
careful
your
with
slide.
that.
No, that was
Based on
my,
the
that was
slide.
my estimate.
Oh, that was your,
That was me reading the law and going
I was
through it.
getting excited.
You said silent reading.
Sorry.
I can't focus.
Sorry. You have 3 kids. Aren't you used to the din? Sorry.
I can't say here what I would say at home.
Silent thinking? It's a great television Bruce got going right now.
I know. Well, I was asking whether I should recess, but he can just look somewhere else. Okay. This is too long. What the heck? It's too long.
There's a lot to say.
Oh my God. Who wrote that part?
Looks good.
Just link, just links. Here's the presentation. You
How-
don't need all that. You can link her presentation instead of
Keith,
writing
how
them.
many single pane windows do we have?
Oh my God. Stop.
Yeah, do you want
Bunch.
to just link them?
Okay.
I counted them once.
Dozens?
Yes.
They're in the actual
No,
SOI.
I think a little summary makes sense, because, you know, a lot of people aren't gonna click on it and link to the
I wouldn't click on
presentation.
it.
A lot
I
of
would
people-
click on it.
I
I
wouldn't
always
click
click
on
on it.
Okay, but
I wouldn't.
You're a clicker, all right.
I think we're lucky if we get them
Economy
to
scores.
scroll down the newsletter.
Susan will link it in her end of the day, likely.
But I did count one time, that the first time we did the SOI, I walked around this.
I remember like
1,000.
Yeah, it was 1,112 something.
Oh, it was something
It's a
crazy.
stupid amount of
It's a stupid
windows.
number.
Yeah.
somebody was stupid to count it.
Yep.
I won't say who, but he's sitting at this table. Well, the only he also.
The only.
Oh, right, right. We good? You guys would totally not pass the STAR assessment because you
stop.
cannot read quickly.
I'm
just
reading on my
saying.
phone. Just stop. I didn't get to read this at all beforehand.
Okay.
Because it didn't arrive in my
So,
inbox until almost 6
There's a
o'clock.
lot of information to get together. This was long.
It's
This
long,
was long.
but there's a lot to cover.
There's a
And we've
lot to
been-
cover.
I mean, we're talking about a strategic plan that's been put together since September.
So let's bang this out,
This
guys.
is
Let's
our
bang
budget
this out.
update,
The
right?
only thing I would say when I looked at it, in all honesty, I was thinking they're gonna get, in a couple of weeks, a full presentation and be able to see the draft. So do you really need to put that much information when they can actually read this? You know, I'm just trying to save you some time.
So is your suggestion to omit that whole paragraph? Because I feel like they've been waiting since September, and I think if we have a preview,
I just tend to be I try to be, people
So-
don't read a lot of it, that's
So
why
my
it's only.
suggestion.
I hate to see you do that much work. and then-
One suggestion I have is that maybe move the entire budget thing up, because people generally don't, like, they click on it and then they scroll down and then that's about it. So I would think that move the budget up and maybe put these down, because they will come up with those presentations. So if we are
So
including this-
prioritize budget and then
Yes, yes.
strategic plan and then SOI.
I would put strategic plan last, just
Yes,
because.
just last.
Yeah,
That's in every newsletter.
We're
Correct.
gonna have a good, like a robust write-up on it after we get the whole
Correct.
deal, right?
I don't even know if you need to, it's gonna have everything in it, they'll see the
Right.
theory
Or
of
just
action.
kind of
that
like a
with it.
mention that strategic planning has concluded, and, we are coming up with a detailed presentation.
Yeah, because you'll have a presentation link and you'll have the actual draft at that point.
Yeah, so I think.
So this is
that-
good. Check.
So it says, please join us for a more detailed presentation at our May 5th school.
Yeah,
committee
I think that's,
Yep,
yeah, I
that's
think
good.
that would be good.
And I just, there's a couple of typos or something, I guess. Those will be cleaned up. All right. I would entertain a motion to approve the school committee newsletter.
Are we reading? I'm reading.
We're
it.
going to read the whole thing?
Yeah, we
I
need
think,
to.
I think we have to read the whole thing.
Out loud? No, but, so Dawn is taking control of the newsletter. Can you copy and paste strategic plan down to the bottom?
I can. Do you want me to read the whole thing or not?
No.
No,
Okay.
maybe
No.
just what you're changing for strategic plan, I think that's
Okay,
the only
let me
thing.
make the change right now.
Yeah, so
um,
once you make the
Does
change.
Right, so-
anyone have changes other than moving this?
No.
Okay.
That's fine.
So I'm just asking for a motion to approve the newsletter as amended. Is that okay?
No,
Why?
because we haven't amended it yet.
She was just amending it right now.
No, that's
She's
only
trying
one
to
thing.
amend.
Did you read the whole thing?
Yes. There's a couple of typos and stuff in here, but it's
Is
not
there
that they
something-
can't fix those.
Does anyone else have
Well, if you
any?
see a typo, you should,
Just fix it, or
Well,
ask
well-
someone to fix it.
well, no, if you see a typo, though, mark it. We may have missed it.
Yeah, I know, I changed one.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
Even better.
No, but then it's the SOI process. So first of all, I think we need to be careful about the heading, saying new high school, because again, we don't want to set the wrong message. We're looking to partner with the state for
feasibility
feasibility study
study.
to see what to do with the high school. And we have to be really clear about that. We can't be walking around saying we're getting a new high school.
Because they could say renovate too.
That's right.
Okay.
So we
So
need to be,
seeking a state grant of 31 to 50% for
I don't think we need
feasibility?
the, I don't think we need the amount in the.
We don't have to say that, we just
Okay.
have to say a feasibility
Seeking
study.
So seeking a feasibility study instead of,
Seeking to partner with the state,
okay.
With the MSBA, yeah.
we don't have to put that in the headline, no. Seeking to partner with the state.
What would you like the headline to be? Because I think that's the issue. Seeking to
I like seeking a state grant.
Yeah, because that kind of catches your attention right away.
Yeah, because what does partner with the state mean? Does that mean financially?
Yes.
Partner
with the state for a grant.
Okay. No 31 to 50%.
Why not?
That's not something you put.
It's not a headline.
Okay. Seeking, okay. For what? What would you like to, how'd you like to explain that we're partnering with them?
For
A feasibility study?
for help with help with the Holliston High School building.
How about we say the statement of interest SOI process explained, or something like that?
I think it buries it a little bit that the reason to engage with this is in the pursuit of a grant that could be as much as 50%. And for their guidance on where to go, what to do, whether it's a rebuild or a renovation.
Seeking to partner with the state for a grant to help with the new Holliston High School.
No, but
That's
she
not New
doesn't,
Holliston.
she
You
Gotta be
doesn't.
careful about saying
Can't say
New
that.
Holliston High School.
To improve Holliston High
If
School.
you guys will just trust me to do a headline tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. I promise it will be okay. I'll do it before we.
I trust you, Lisa.
I
Let's
do
fix it.
too. That's,
Okay, but I do think this needs to
We will
be,
not say new high school.
I even.
Are there
read
other
the-
comments, Stacey, that you have?
yes, so I think we don't need to put in all of this data and
It's long.
in the part about our neighbors in Medway, Ashland, and Natick, welcome new high schools, like you're not sharing that's not telling the process, that would make me say, well, how come Holliston doesn't
Exactly.
have a new high school? And then you have to explain
That's
the
why I was saying
process.
just link her,
Yeah.
her slides to it. If you want
I
to
think
learn more
it's-
about
yeah.
the process, you can, here it is, and then we can just link
Yeah.
it. It'll be a lot faster.
I don't think the community understands the why. I guess it's the why and the how, but if
But
you
that
don't want to
statement's not
include-
helping either, though. So if I was not educated in this, I would say, well, how come Natick and Wellesley and Medway and Hopkinton are all getting new schools and we're not?
Because they pursued the SOI earlier, right?
Well,
So Stacy,
Or they have different criteria that they.
so if I may say something, I haven't been, I actually don't know anything about this process. And this paragraph was pretty helpful to me to understand it. So I don't know if that helps. Because honestly, this is the first time I've read about the details of what's going to go in. So it does make sense to include some of it, because I think people are interested. Maybe if we can just put in as how we are going to address those, that's about it. But I think this is great. I really loved reading this.
I think it was also to your point before, or Catherine's point before about we keep doing this. We're on our 5th year of doing this. That's why I thought it might be important to know in 2021 there were this many that were submitted. Only 4 school districts were picked to advance forward with the feasibility study. I just don't. We come from this understanding it and having gone through it, and the majority of people reading this have no idea what this is about.
I didn't. So, I mean, this.
Though, because
I was going to say, but
the first year they didn't move it forward, the select board, so.
I'm not sure we really outlined this much in newsletters. in the
Yes, and I
past.
think
So
this
if you
is
tuned
really
in and
great,
watched-
because people
Then go ahead,
kind of.
go ahead, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
people
I'm not
kind
going
of-
to argue over it, it's fine. But
Okay, what's the
But,
next section?
yeah, but I
But
agree
be
with the
careful
SOI
about-
thing.
You got to be careful about putting in information that's going to cause more questions than give answers. That's all I'm saying.
I think we can field those questions. I'm not concerned about a conversation about it. I mean, we voted in favor because we unanimously feel strong about it. I think any one of us here can field the question or at least get more information and respond to it.
Okay, anything else that anybody has comments on?
Thank you.
Can we just say a new or renovated Holliston High School? Well, what else would we do? What falls, what outside, outside?
They
of-
would say you get nothing.
Well, I know, but we're not seeking nothing,
No,
we're seeking.
I know we're not.
So I think new or renovated covers,
I think it's okay to say what,
I think
That's
yeah,
okay.
I think you can say new or renovated.
so can I
We
take
just
out all
can't
those
say
question
new
marks?
alone.
we can't say new alone. I think that was the, yeah.
Although we all want that
Yeah,
they
we might
have to
not.
by law give us a number of options.
And just moving it down
Okay.
under budget, sorry, did I?
Yeah, I wasn't even supposed to be on it,
Sorry.
sorry. No, it's my fault.
I questioned the word, I'm sorry, I had to do this. Underneath the budget, I don't even know where, it's before that first bullet, I guess. It's after you talked about new costs. And it says, we tried to be conservative in budgeting for new costs. I'm not sure that's the right word. We were trying to do it was like targeted. It wasn't
Sure,
that
no, we
it,
can change that. Where is it, what paragraph are you on?
it's, I don't know.
It's the very, very top of page.
After operating budget, it's
Very,
under
very
there's a
top of
highlighted
page
section, it's right after the highlighted section.
I don't see a highlighted section.
Oh, this one says,
Oh,
it
yeah,
is
I do.
important to note
Okay,
that our
we tried to
estimate.
be- Oh, okay.
How about we tried to budget for only essential new costs?
Right, like it was, targeted, essential, something. Conservative isn't really the
Yeah,
word.
I know, that brings up,
You know how
yeah.
I feel. Sorry.
We tried to budget
But it's just
only
not, that's not accurate, that's all I'm saying. That's just,
for only essential new costs.
we're not putting up wish lists. I think what we're trying to say is we're not doing wish lists here. We're doing
Yeah,
targeted
exactly. No, that's
initiatives
exactly what we're trying
that
to
have
say.
a absolute purpose and need in the district.
We tried to budget for only
Essential or
new
something.
costs
Yeah.
that were essential. Okay,
That's all I had. Anybody else have anything else?
oh, now it's a long sentence.
Right. You know what, Lisa? I trust you to fix it to make it look the way it's supposed to. All right. Are we good now? Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the school committee newsletter of April 7th as amended by the subcommittee, and Lisa Koshin's going to clean up something.
As amended by Lisa.
As edited by Lisa.
We won't have a meeting tomorrow.
Right. Did you?
I was seconding.
Who first?
Second.
Okay.
Minnie and Catherine.
Minnie and Catherine, all in favor? Okay. All right. Items of information, there is a tech proposed FY23 budget. Is not something we are voting on, it's just for your information. Our next meeting date is April 28th, 2022, which will be after school vacation. So for those of you who are here, there, and everywhere, enjoy your school break. Enjoy the musicals this weekend, and I'll say goodnight.
Move to adjourn.
Move to
Motion
adjourn.
sorry.
All in favor? And we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.